Now called to order. I'd like to congratulate everybody on a safe, healthy, happy holiday, and everybody's in shape to come back and we can start one more year. Can we have the roll call, please?
Gina Argento, Bogdan Bakarowski, Lisa Bamonte, Louis Baracelli, Gina Barros, Eric Brazaitis, Tom Burrows, Phil Caponegro, Iris Cabrera, Frank Carbone, Stephen Chesler, Michael Chiricella, Teresa Cinciata, Joshua Cohn, Arthur Dubinowski, T. Willis Elkins, Julia Amanda Foster, Samuel Fransos, Chairperson Fuller,
Here.
Emily Gallagher, Vincent Gangone, Solomon Green, Joel Gross, Sonia Iglesia, Moisha Indig, Bozita Kaminsky, Avram Katz, Ryan Coonan, Yoel Landau, Marie Lianza, Yoel Lowe, Trina McKeever, Toby Moskowitz, Martin Needleman, Simon Newstein, Rabbi Niederman, Karen Nieves, Mario Damark, Janice Peterson, Dana Racklin, Michael Gary Schlesinger, Isaac Sofer, Robert Solano, James Stewart, Del Teague, Tommy Torres, Maria Vieta, Stephen Weidberg, Simon Weiser, Tessa Wilson. 21 members answering the call.
Thank you, Jerry. Can I have an approval of the agenda, please? Bozina, Phil, all in favor? Aye. Against? Abstentions? Motion carried. First item on the agenda is unenclosed sidewalk cafe at 168 Barinquin Place. Andrew Carabello. Is there anyone here to present on that item? 168 Barinquin Place. Is anybody here to present on that item? Okay. The next item on the agenda is an application for New York City Landmark Preservation Committee proposal. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Mary Diericks, and I'm the preservation consultant for this project. With me is Misha Hunter Burkett, who is with the architects, the preservation architects, Lee Salzman. We have handouts for you. Handing out the handouts are Aaron Schlesinger and Benjamin Francis of Parkview Management. The project is a rooftop terrace on St. Paul's Church on 306 Rodney Street. Also a new fire escape and a new gate. St. Paul's Church is an individual landmark, and it was built in the 1880s by architect J.C. Cady, who was the architect of the Museum of Natural History. And in your handout, you have a photo of it on the, or you have an image of it on the front page. The church doesn't look exactly like it used to. In 1944, there was a big fire, and the roof of the church was destroyed. So when you see the three pictures, you can see the difference between the left-hand one and the middle one. What we're proposing, and Misha will go into more detail about this, is a rooftop terrace that brings back the look and the idea of the original roof line. The reason this is happening is because the developers of 304 Rodney next door want to buy the air rights and some easements from St. Paul's. For that, St. Paul's is going to get a new roof that's guaranteed in perpetuity. That's a roof terrace, which they can use a number of days a year. And they're going to get money for restoring the building and for maintaining it in the future, to restore the bricks and the roof and bring the inside up to code and have money for maintenance. And this is something that is very, very needed for the church. I'm going to hand this over to Misha Hunter-Burkett, who's going to describe what we're proposing. And this goes before the Landmarks Commission next week. So on this, we'd appreciate your support. Misha.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. So my name is Misha Hunter-Burkett. I'm with Lee Saltzman Architects. We're sure. Can you hear me now? Yep, great. Misha Hunter-Burkett with Lee Saltzman Architects. We're the preservation architect for the roof project, and working with the client team also to provide an egress stair for the roof and a new gate that will connect from the side yard of the property to the street. Yes. Oh, okay. Very good. Okay, so one of the things that we did for the presentation to the Landmarks Commission that's going to be for next week is to do a color-coded elevations that really illustrate as clearly as we can what the existing condition is and what the proposed condition is. We also made this presentation to the committee a few weeks ago in December. So on the left-hand side, you can see in green the areas that are being proposed to be removed, specifically the existing low gables. Mary mentioned that there was a terrible fire in the 1940s, and after the fire, the church roof was not rebuilt to the way that it was in the late 19th century when it was first constructed. So this low-profile gable, parapet, and very stubby turret would be proposed to be removed. The historic cross, the church is asked to be salvaged. And so in the yellow, you can see the profile of the new gable-ended pavilion, which is much steeper. And that actually matches the geometry of what was there before the fire. And then the parapets, and then the higher turret. And then on top, the cross would actually, that was salvaged, would be reinstalled on the new gable-ended pavilion. So this would be on Rodney Street. And then can you flip to the new? Thank you. And then on the South 5th Street elevation, on the top of the sheet, you can see in green the areas that would be proposed to be removed. So I'm going to move from left to right just to make it really clear. You can see here the existing chain link gate that exists. That would be removed. You can see beyond the covered stair. That would also be removed. You can see the existing gutters. The gutters would be removed. Again, this low profile gable would be removed, and the stubby turrets, but the historic cross would be salvaged. And then at the bottom, moving again from left to right, a new metal gate, recalling the historic gate, but with the panic hardware and the egress, outswinging egress panel, and then an in-swinging panel for the vehicular access, because they plan to use that in that side yard. And then the new egress stair. And then most significantly, on the roof, you can see in the blue, the proposed new truss system. And this truss would be evoking the profile of the historic roof. Then at the street wall, also the extension of slate, matching the existing slope of the existing slate below. And then a new parapet, new gable-ended pavilion, and the new turrets with the salvaged cross. I know it's a lot to take in, but we want to make sure it's clear.
I can do it.
Yep.
There's going to be a bridge leading from the new building, which is here, to the church. It's very simple in construction and actually doesn't even touch the church. It's stands on its own and doesn't have any physical impact on the church. And the reason is that part of the deal is that the new building needs to use the terrace to satisfy open space requirements for their new building, so that they can build it taller. There's an old fire escape now, which you can see photos of in your handout. That's going to be replaced by a new one, which also is the church is using too. It's one of the things that's bringing the church up to code. It will be visible. We didn't. I don't think we included. We did include visibility studies later. We'll show that. And yeah, that's it. We're going to use the railings on the terrace and on the fire escape that are already at the church. They're on the running along the outside of the church, so everything relates very well. Same with the gate. There's an ugly old gate now, and there's going to be a new gate that's better looking and matches the railings that are already present on the church in other areas. This is all going to be very visible from many places, partly because of the BQE and the parks along the BQE, but you will see the new rooftop terrace structures, you will see the fire escape, and you will see the gates and the sky bridge. This is a big benefit to the church, and the church supports this, and we hope you will too. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody, we don't see if anybody got any questions, huh? Does anyone have any questions? Yes. Can the presenters come back, please? By the way, I'd like to acknowledge Captain William Glenn from the 94th Precinct. Thank you for coming.
I'm the commanding officer of 94th Precinct. I know this isn't really a venue for it, so tomorrow night is our community council meeting at Dave?
Polish Slavic Center, 176 Java Street.
176 Java Street, 7 o'clock. I look forward to seeing all of you there, hopefully tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. So thank you for your support of myself, and thank you for all your help throughout the year, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you. Could the presenters come back to have questions? Steve?
Well, yeah, I think, my question about the Sky Bridge, it seems like, obviously it's a great proposal to have income for the church and do this restoration work, but a private developer is going to be using the rooftop of the church for access for their residents.
Yes.
The church also.
The church will also be using will be able to use the roof. At minimum, I think it's 12. This is Benjamin Francis.
How you doing? Your question was in regards to the use of the roof deck. It's mostly used.
From a private.
Yeah, from a private aspect. We have many open space on our lots, but we also need this to satisfy our open space on, just in general, on the entire project. So yes, we are using the roof deck for open space, but just limited time, only from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And also on top of that, the church is going to be using it for their uses as well. I know that the church is being used right now for many community events, and that's what they plan to use it for as well in the future. And that's what we're trying to do here.
So it's only accessible to private residents, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.?
Correct, correct,
Except for days when the church can use it.
correct.
Emily?
Is there any precedence for open space being used on another building in terms of development as a?
So we thought about that, and the zoning zoning resolution says there has to be abutting properties, so that's why we had to connect both buildings using the sky bridge. Marty?
Mark,
Yeah, why don't you describe the property that's being built, the bridge is coming from, it's 16 stories?
Yes, it's
Right off of Broadway, right?
Yes, it's right off of Broadway, right along the MG and Z line, the subway, and it's going to be a 16-story mixed-use building. We are grandfathered in also for affordable housing at 421A.
How many units altogether?
Only 62 units in total, so it's a very small residential portion, and it's mostly just used for commercial uses. That's the base of the building, and actually most of the square footage of the building is commercially, and it's the first 5. So it's a bigger block, and then it's going to be a thinner tower up above.
So with the satisfaction of the open space requirement on the roof of the church, does that mean the building is being built as of right? There are no other zoning variances?
There is no zoning variances, it's all as of right. It's just a simple air rights transfer with open space use for the church.
Just to clarify, the roof is open to the church whenever they want to use it? Or is there an agreement about how many days?
There's an agreement on how many days the church is allowed to use it per year, and they just need to notify us that they want to have an event or whatever they use it for, for Sunday after services, and they could go up
How many days per year are they?
16 days.
16?
16 days.
That's it?
No, 16 days.
That they're allowed to use
So
their
it's,
own roof?
so it's,
Per year.
it's how many events, per month, so.
It is one of the benefits to the church is that they get, their church is in as good as condition as it can be, but needs a lot of work, and they get money to do that.
I would say that this is only a small part of the actual deal. The bigger picture over here is that the church is falling apart, and the community could see that as well. The windows are being held up right now by tape. The gate is unsafe and not up to code to egress if there's,
Right, but I guess to me it seems like there's two separate issues. There's the air rights purchase, which is paying for the improvement, and there's a separate issue of you needing to fulfill public space requirements. So why did you pursue getting a rider on that requirement from city planning so that you wouldn't have to rely on the use of somebody else's building for public space?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few answers to that question. One, the issues, they're not actually two separate issues, they're actually one and the same. We can't just transfer the allowable residential area from one property to the other because the open space requirement that we're referring to actually dictates how much residential area we can build. And so what happens is by increasing, we effectively purchase, say, 30,000 square feet. We transfer 30,000 square feet from the church lot to the new building parcel. That requires an additional 10,000 square feet of open space. And doing so, we are actually putting about 8,000 of that square feet on the roof of the church. So without the terrace transaction, without the terrace being part of that transaction, there is no feasibility. The transfer of the air rights just for building the residential area has no way of actually getting through, and therefore there is no way to create any form of transaction that's beneficial for the church without the transfer of both the air rights and the open space simultaneously.
I'm trying to catch up here. Somebody may have asked this, but in the pictures, it looks like there's a building already under construction.
Correct.
So you're getting air rights after the fact?
We're
Or you
building
already?
as of right now.
Correct.
We're building as of right now. We're allowed to go up to about 9 to 10 stories.
And then if this goes through, you're just gonna throw a few more floors on the top?
Exactly.
Oh, great.
Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have some speakers on that issue. Would you please call up the speakers?
Hello. We have Thomas Vito Ayuto, Glennis Collin, Benjamin Francis. And then after Benjamin is Aaron Schlesinger, Gina Barros, and Daniel Walker. Thomas Vito Aiuto.
Yeah. Hi there, my name is Vito Aiuto. I'm the pastor of Resurrection Williamsburg, which is a church which began renting space at St. Paul's Lutheran Church approximately 14 years ago. I've since been hired as a supply preacher and pastor for the church, and I'm speaking in favor of the motion. And I want to talk a little bit about the benefits that the income and the renovation of the church would be not only for the church, but also for the community at large. I can speak a little bit to that because I arrived as a church plant about 15 years ago, and St. Paul's figuratively and literally threw their doors open to us, which was really gracious of them to allow us to meet there. It also allowed for us to participate in a community that they'd already been building and enriching. And so we've since done a lot of services together, not only worship services, but also community service, where two communities and cultures that might not do as many things together in another condition, they allow for that because they were really gracious to us. We meet in the church. Our particular congregation meets there every week, but we also do events there. And as has already been stated, it needs a lot of work. And my understanding is that this is going to enable not only their church, but also our church and the wider work and hospitality that they extend through the building. It's just going to be far more accessible and allow them to do far more things. It's going to allow us to do that as well. Thanks for listening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Glenise Collin. I'm a lifetime resident of Williamsburg. Today I'm here representing St. Paul's Lutheran Church. I was baptized 31 years ago at St. Paul's and spent most of my life as a member of its congregation. I am now a member of the board of directors. In fact, I was brought into this church through Henry Von Dam, whose family was one of the original co-founders of St. Paul's. Our church has been part of Williamsburg community since we established in 1853. We have been in the forefront to improve the lives of Williamsburg residents, irrespective of age, background, or affiliation, and hope to continue to fight for social justice for all. Our very existence has been somewhat of a miracle, as we survived the building of the BQE, the J line, both adjacent to the church, and a devastating fire in 1944. However, despite this, we have remained in a financially precarious state as we are an independent church not fully affiliated with any national Lutheran council. As a result of our financial predicament, we have been unable to maintain the building built in 1884 up to the standards as it was designed by the famous architect Josie Cleveland Caddy, who designed a wing of the Museum of Natural History. We feel that this proposal by Park View Management and its architects and engineers teams is, as listed in our project overview, will make this possible for us to do so. This historic gem of a building, landmarked in 2011, can finally be taken care of and restored, which will be beautiful to its surrounding community as well as the church. We feel that we are asking for your support so that we can continue to give back to this community for another 135 years.
Benjamin Francis? Okay. And Aaron? Okay. Gina, you're next.
Yeah. Hi. Good evening. My name is Gina Barros. I am the Council Secretary of St. Paul's Evangelic Lutheran Church of Williamsburg, Brooklyn. This historic church, built by the German population in 1884, continues to this day to be vibrant and serves the need of a diverse population that now needs help addressing years of deferred maintenance. We have been fortunate. There have been many friends of St. Paul's, members of our congregation, of the Resurrection Presbyterian congregation that hold their weekly services in our sanctuary. People of the community have volunteered the services and funds to address many of the maintenance issues. In landmarking our church, we received the assistance of the city council person and also the architect, historic preservationist, Ward Dennis, obtaining landmark status in 2011 so that this building, dear to the hearts of many in the Williamsburg community, would not be lost. Furthermore, our Hispanic Lutheran congregation has the legacy of providing community services and outreach, as our parish hall has been the venue for many events sponsored by organizations such as the Southside Task Force, Los Sudes, and the Workers' Justice Program, which focuses on immigrant rights. This is to name a few. These organizations have offered assistance services to the underserved, such as workshops on affordable housing, healthcare, and immigrant supports. And most recently, our congregation had a fundraiser for hurricane relief efforts to help Puerto Rico. The parish hall has always been available to the public interest groups, despite the decrease of availability of such space in South Williamsburg. And to conclude, there's a lot we foresee that with the funds we can do, but I'll speak specific in terms that I believe we can make the parish hall more functional, comfortable, improve the heating system, renovate the kitchen, and improve the stained glass and repair the stained glass windows. We ask the Community Board 1 for support of this developer and their application. Thank you.
Is there anybody else?
Hi, it's Daniel Walker.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Walker. My father, James, who is vice president of St. Paul's Church, is currently out of the country, and he asked that I read this statement for the record. Before I start, I just want to say that his absence today notwithstanding, I cannot overstate how much my father cares about this project succeeding. Finding a way to keep this church from falling apart or disappearing altogether has been a mission of his for almost 2 decades. Okay, so St. Paul's Evangelical Lutheran Church of Williamsburg, Brooklyn, New York, sought out landmark status out of concern that our gem of a building would not be lost to the community. The church leadership then set about seeking sources of funding that would address years of deferred maintenance. That accomplished, basically approximately 6 years ago, we began negotiating with 329 LLP, methodically working out the details of this air rights sale, trying to find harmony between protection and development. Under the terms of the sale, the developer 329 LLP has the right to install a roof deck on our church, and in return, they are henceforth responsible for the maintenance of our roof. The exterior masonry and stained glass windows will be restored, and we aim to reestablish the original silhouette of the church that was lost in the 1944 fire. This restoration process will ensure that the building will be brought up to code. Our best option for accumulating the funding necessary to accomplish these goals is provided under this agreement with 329 LLP. St. Paul's will be required to spend much of the sale proceeds on the physical restoration, and the developer will share the cost of additional insurance. We sincerely believe that the developer appreciates that supporting the church, the church restoration not only enhances their new building, but also serves a public benefit by helping to maintain the historic vibrancy of the area. We ask the Brooklyn Community Board 1 to fully support the developer and their application. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is NYCHA update. Paulina, is there anyone here from NYCHA? Is there anybody here from New York City Housing?
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, good evening. I'm sorry, I lost track of time. My name is Brian Honan. I'm Director of Intergovernmental Relations with the New York City Housing Authority. I'm joined by my two colleagues who I'll allow themselves to introduce themselves.
I'm Matt Charter, Director of Real Estate Development for the New York City Housing Authority.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Polina Bakhtiyarov. I'm also a Director for Real Estate Development within NYCHA. I oversee preservation, and Matt oversees new construction.
Thank you. So I'd just like to spend a few minutes talking about some of the challenges that New York City Housing Authority faces lately. You may have read about them in the newspapers, in the media. So NYCHA has undergone over a generation of disinvestment from not only the federal government, but from the state, and also largely from the city of New York for over a generation. This disinvestment has now made providing basic services, things like heat and hot water, things like elevator service, a challenge for the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority has to now look for other ways of raising funds besides traditional methods from the federal government in order to be the landlord that residents deserve. In this community board, which has more housing, NYCHA housing than most in the city, we have 4 different projects that we're looking at that are part of what we call NYCHA 2.0. It's a continuation of Next Gen, which came out in the first part of the de Blasio administration, and this looks to tackle what we have as a $32 billion capital backlog in order to get our developments to a state of good repair. And we have 2 different strategies that we're using in this board in 4 different developments. At Williams and Independence Plaza, which were built by the state and which were cut off from funding in 1998, we are and run largely, if not solely, on the rents received from tenants, but with no subsidy from either the federal government or from the state. We are looking to convert those developments from traditional public housing to Section 8. We are also looking to transfer the management from NYCHA to a private partner in those developments. And at Berry Street, we're using what is known as the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, otherwise known as RAD. This is a program started under the Obama administration. It essentially does the same thing. It converts from public housing to Section 8 and also allows you to bring in a private partner for management. And at Cooper Park, a development that has tremendous capital needs, we are looking to lease land to a private developer to raise revenue in order to meet some of the capital needs in that development. So as I said, my colleagues are here who run these programs who can give you some more background, some more details on both of the programs, and then we'll be happy to take questions. So,
So good evening again. In terms of preservation, our preservation framework is called PACT, which stands for Permanent Affordability Commitment Together. And really there are two prongs to that program or to that framework, which Brian had just discussed. The first one is around what we call the unfunded units portfolio. Those, again, were 8 developments across the city that were originally constructed by the city and state of New York, but were eventually disinvested and have fallen into, well, have come into the NYCHA portfolio, but without dedicated funding. And for those unfunded units, including Independence Towers and Williams Plaza, we are pursuing a program that involves the conversion of those units with residents in place to project-based Section 8. And what follows is a public-private partnership between NYCHA and a development team to perform 3 critical pieces, which are the upfront repairs of the development, as well as the transition of property management from NYCHA to a private property management company. And then there's also a social services piece that's included in this program. This involves either bringing on a new provider to fill an existing gap in services or working with existing providers to create a more cohesive program of services in order to, again, address any delivery gaps there. So that's the unfunded side of the house. And then the other program under PACT is, again, called RAD, as Brian mentioned, Rental Assistance Demonstration. It's almost identical, except for the fact that there is this piece of the conversion of funding from public housing, which is called Section 9, to Section 8. The reason why we can't do RAD on the unfunded portfolio is because that conversion of funding is the critical piece that's needed in order for a development to participate in this program. And since there is no dedicated funding for those developments, we unfortunately can't do a traditional RAD conversion on those units. I think one of the most important pieces of this framework as a whole is that, again, as the name implies, it's a partnership. And that partnership, first and foremost, includes residents. So from the start, as soon as a site is announced, we do extensive engagement with residents, both in terms of the resident leadership as well as the general body. So we've been out in the community speaking with residents about the ins and outs of this program. And we've also been working with the resident leaders in order to identify, any issues that they may have, both within their development as well as any gaps that they see in the program in order to attempt to address those expeditiously. There's also an advocacy group called the RAD Roundtable, which is comprised of both resident leaders as well as housing advocates such as Enterprise Community Partners, CSS, Legal Aid Society, that actually came together back in 2016 in order to really serve as an oversight body for NYCHA's rollout of RAD, which now has grown to include these unfunded units. It's called PACT. There's also a set of guiding principles that the Roundtable put out, which is really a secondary layer of protection for residents during the conversion process. RAD dictates certain rights that residents preserve during conversion, including, in our case, we're doing tenant-in-place rehabilitation, so there is the right to return, but no one is being relocated, so everyone is staying in their units. There's also a right to continue to access funds for tenant participation activities. So there's that set of federal rights.
No, 5:45 was the last time.
Excuse me, you're interrupting the speaker.
6:45 was the time that was given on the website.
You are out of order.
No,
you
it's
are
not
out of order. We have somebody speaking. You are out of order.
6:45
You are
is the
out of
deadline,
order.
Dialis.
You're out
That
of
is
order.
the time that was given to the public. This is the second time in a row that a member of the public is not allowed to speak. Now, I will remind you, the Public Meetings Act law states that the time and the place must be given online.
Why are you coming in here disrupting our meeting?
Because
Look at the
it is
agenda.
not
Look at
okay
the
for
agenda.
you not to provide this
Look at the
information
agenda.
online.
Look at the agenda. Look
The
at the
email
agenda.
last month said
You are out of order. You are out of order.
When did this change? When did this change?
At the last meeting, where were you?
No, No.
Where
I
were
was
you?
here at the last meeting.
No, last meeting. The
6:45 was the time communicated at the last meeting at 3 p.m.
The sign-up time is 5:45 to 6:15. The time for the sign-up is 5:40. You are out of order. I'm done. Where's the police? Where's Captain Glenn? Somebody take her out of here. Somebody take her out.
That is absolutely unacceptable, and you know it, and you know it, and you know it. And you're going to invite a lawsuit based on this because
Well, you just go right ahead. You just go ahead and do what you need to do.
Really?
You're the one that's late. You're the one that's late. You do what you need to do. Do what you need to do. Out. Out.
Community boards
Out.
that are out of order.
Out.
It's going to have your name on it.
That's fine with me. That's fine with me. That's fine with me. Do what you need to do. She's walking in here disrupting the meeting like she's running inside the chat. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No problem. I don't know if I
sorry.
can follow that. I think the last thing that I'll say is that we just actually released the request for proposals. So that's the RFP, the open public document inviting potential development teams to apply to partner with us on the conversion of these units. So that RFP was released about a week and a half ago. And next week we will be having site visits at each of the developments that will include both NYCHA staff as well as the resident leaders from each of the developments, so that potential applicants can both see the physical grounds but also speak with residents and understand their concerns and needs at each of these sites. So I'll end with that. Thank you, and I'll pass it off to Matt.
I just want to add a few other things too. So I think the word that we hear, it's a dirty word in government, is privatization. You know, on these cases, this is again once a partnership. Nature is not going away as part of this. We will continue to control the waiting list for these developments. We will continue to oversee the Section 8 program and inspections. So we will be not only a partner but a regulator here, as well as tenants retain all the rights that they have currently, in that they don't pay more than 30% of their income towards rent. They have eviction protections. They have a right to the tenant association. They have succession rights. All the rights that are currently set out too. So I think that's really an important part of this as well too, to add. So Matt.
As Brian said, another one of our strategies to try to raise revenue for capital repairs is to do mixed income development throughout the city. Cooper Park was one of those sites. It was the fourth site announced under the Next Generation NYCHA plan, announced at the end of 2017. We last met with residents over the summer, residents and neighborhood, some of the neighbors of that site and elected officials. Since then, we've been working on changes to the program for the 2.0 version. So we haven't, no changes to that development yet, but it's sort of, it's in a bit of an in-between state between the 1.0 version and the 2.0 version. We haven't made any decisions on which direction it'll go. We'll plan to go out and meet with residents and other local stakeholders probably next month or the following, just to talk about the options to go forward. So some of you that are more familiar with that project and with that site probably have a little bit more information, but happy to answer questions and what I can tonight.
Tom.
I'm not a housing expert, but we get lots of real estate developers who come to us with all kinds of proposals, and the three of you look like real estate developers. You do not look like NYCHA representatives. You do not look like residents of NYCHA. You look like representatives of the Trump administration to privatize everything that we've ever done socially in this country. Are there any community groups that have legal representation other than white shoe law firms in Midtown? Because it's all about developing New York City. It's about kicking the poor people out. You want to take Alphabet, the buildings in A, B, C, and D in Manhattan and privatize them. You just want to get rid of the poor people. So how are the poor people being protected in this privatization of our housing?
So that was a lot of charges in one sentence. And I don't understand how the eviction works. So can you explain that too? Can you explain how, because they all have protections under this Obama program instead of Trump program. It is,
Well,
you know.
Obama is the same as Trump. They're all supporting the 1% of this country. We're keeping the status quo of keeping the real estate interests making money. You want to take parking lots from poor people and build buildings on them. You want to push out poor people and privatize. It's like get rid of the poor people in New York City and keep moving the rich people in. So if there's community groups, do they have legal representation?
So none of this impacts anyone's tenancy in terms of evictions. No one's rent goes up under this, under the development at Cooper Park. Tenants remain the same in place. They remain public housing tenants. In Independence and Williams, the difference is revenue is coming into the development for the first time since 1998. So that will bring capital improvements and repairs to the development. If you go by Independence, and if the community board wants to, we can take you to Independence. That has been running on a mobile boiler for about 5 years now.
That's not my fault, that's your fault.
That is correct. Well, it's actually the federal government's fault, which stopped, or the state government, which stopped funding it in 1998. So NYCHA did not walk away from Independence in 1998 when the state stopped funding it. Instead, what we did was we took the little funds that we had from other developments and we spread them around. That obviously did not work, and folks are not getting the services that they need, so we need to go with the strategies that the federal government is offering us. The federal government is offering us this program. We've used it already in Rockaway with 1,400 units. It has changed night and day the living conditions for the tenants out there in Ocean Bay. No one has been evicted. Repairs have been done. Capital improvements have been done. The quality of life has gotten better. If you talk to the residents there on the peninsula, on Rockaway, all the residents of public housing saying, please convert us to that program now. So it has made a major change. And I know it's different, and change is always difficult, but the status quo is even harder.
Dana?
So I have a question, two-part question. The first is I love when we talk about shared responsibilities and partnership, but it seems as though the shared responsibility and partnership is only happening on the back end instead of the front end. You guys have already decided that this is the path forward, and now we'll include everybody else, meaning the residents and whatnot. And so how do we elevate the residents and those closest to the problem to be part of the front end, which is what is the path forward, and then how do we all collectively as government, private organizations, work toward, community members work towards that.
Sure.
And then the second part to that question is, if you are going to be putting out an RFP, is there going to be preference or anything given to minority-owned firms and businesses and contractors? And the third part of this is, in your audit of where this money is and how is it spent, did NYCHA audit itself comparatively to time and salaries and contractors and vendors, and see where the deficit was and how that money can be reallocated to the residents that know how to spend the money? And will they be getting any equity or any other types of things that I'm sure the developers and the private agencies will be getting?
Sure.
And quite honestly, I think that this is the most important conversation we're going to have tonight as far as our community goes. And
Yep.
so
a lot of good questions. Yes, this is community one. And we knew that coming in. So engagement is really important. We cannot do this just coming in and say we're gonna do this overnight. In Williams and Independence, we've been engaged with the residents for over a year now. Since 2017, we've been engaged with the residents there, holding.
Not to develop RAD and PAC, to implement RAD and PAC.
To implement RAD and
But
PAC,
so do you
correct.
understand the difference between developing the plan and then implementing the plan?
No, it has been both. It has been both. Because from where we started to where we are now, it looks very different. Okay, so what was really important to when we talked to residents there were things like right sizing, right? They wanted to know how that would work, meaning, if I live in an apartment that is larger than my needs or smaller than my needs, succession rights, going over things like that. Will my sons and daughters be allowed to succeed in my apartment? So we've had many, many meetings with both the resident leadership and with the residents involved in terms of engagement, in terms of making sure that folks not only understood but also negotiated rights, in there, and those are within the financial documents as well. And also this RAD roundtable that we talk about that is made up of legal aid, community service society, goals in Manhattan, Riseboro, who's local, a number of different groups as well as residents, who are attending associations. We've learned over the years, we definitely, under the Bloomberg administration, there was a plan that was known as infill, which folks said was way, heavy-handed. It was accepted or, you're going to lose public housing. That is not a strategy that works. It's not a strategy that we're interested in. And it's not a strategy that will lead to success. In Cooper Park, where they're going to develop a building, residents will be involved in selecting the development, and we've never done that before. Only, under the Next Generation Nature Plan did we start to do that. So yes, engagement is a big part of the program. In terms of equity. So I'll let Paulina, and there is not equity, but there are job opportunities for sure. So at Ocean Bay, for instance, in Rockaway, it's the only place where we've done this, so I'm going to keep on going back to that model though. 75 residents were hired there for not only construction jobs, but also were hired for permanent jobs, after in the building services. For MWBE, we have encouraged MWBE participation. We have opportunities for MWBE participation, but in order to have a preference, what you have to do is show a disparity study, and that is a study the city has, which has shown a history of discriminating against MWBEs, but NYCHA has not actually been proven to have a history of discriminating against MWBEs. So without that, we cannot offer that preference. So it is something. It is something that, yes, it is something that. Sure. Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Even though we don't have the formal framework, right, that other entities operate under, there is a preference within the scoring criteria for the development team if there is the inclusion of a minority or small or woman-owned business. So even though again we don't have the formal piece, we do intend to provide preference in the scoring process for teams that bring those types of firms to the table. Brian started talking about Section 3, so not only does Section 3 cover jobs, but it also covers small business concerns, meaning contracting opportunities for businesses that are resident-owned. So that is also required under the program. And with regards to equity, so there is no passing of equity, specifically under the preservation program, because we're not selling the land. NYCHA is retaining the land, and we also participate as 50% member of the entity that's leasing the land. So we're almost like sandwiching the development team between two layers of NYCHA. So while there's not that traditional, did you have a question about that?
No, go ahead.
I mean, these are the facts, right? I can show you the organizational charts. But for us, there's no use in releasing.
The goodness of their
They're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They're coming into a 99-year partnership with NYCHA. It's a land lease. It's a 99-year ground lease, as is typical in other affordable housing transactions.
But the partnership for them equates to some type of financial gain.
So yes, so they come in with their financing. NYCHA is not putting in money to do these repairs. So typically they will go out to the market and they will get a construction loan from a bank, or they'll get some other type of financing in order to cover the upfront cost of doing the repairs. And also they're receiving HUD subsidy in the form of the Section 8 contract. So really that's why they're interested in these properties, is because Section 8 has had such a high funding track record. It's really a guaranteed monthly check in terms of the subsidy. So yes, that is the way that the partnership is structured. But again, there's no sale, there's no transfer of the fee. So equity is not being transferred in that sense.
Iris. So I have two questions. The first one, what is the backup plan in case Section 8 lost funding? Because we see that in the past, the other program lost funding. And in case the tenant doesn't want Section 8, do the tenant have to pay the full rent as the market price, or what is the plan?
Sure. So with regards to Section 8, with regards to Section 8 funding, okay, I'm doing something to adjust this, I'm sorry. With regards to Section 8 funding, the way that the program is structured is the development team and NYCHA will continue to receive the funding, and upon each expiration of the contract, there will be a renewal of the contract throughout the 99-year term. Because, to your point, the Section 8 contracts aren't 99 years, they're typically 15 or 20 years. And so the development will continue to receive funding. Now, in terms of Section 8 as a whole, I mean, housing experts agree that Section 9 will, if it were to ever go away, Section 9 would go away first before Section 8. So Section 8 is clearly a more stable financial resource, specifically when it comes to HUD subsidies. So that's why we're seeing this as a more viable financial platform for the units to rest on. With regards to a resident not wanting Section 8, so a resident could at any point obviously apply for a transfer out of the development, although they must have a cause in order to be able to transfer. So, of course, that is one option, although our transfer process is quite slow, so there's no guarantee that they will be able to transfer ahead of the conversion. And then with regards to the back end, if they don't want Section 8, I mean, I don't understand why they would not want Section 8, because, to your point, it reduces their share of the rent to 30% of their income. Otherwise, they would have to pay the market rate rent, and the market rate would be most like in this case, although we haven't played the scenario out because we're not anticipating anyone refusing Section 8.
You can live in NYCHA and pay 30% of the income, but in order to qualify for Section 8, you have to be on the
You don't have to qualify for Section 8 under this program. This is an in-place conversion. No one is being asked to leave. If anyone is quote-unquote over income for Section 8, they will remain in their unit and they will pay at most 30% of their income towards rent.
Marty?
I have just three questions, basically. In terms of Section 8, what happens if, under the present administration or the craziness that's going on in Washington, Section 8 is completely removed and unfunded, which is certainly possible in this crazy world we're living in. So what would happen then? Secondly, in terms of private management, isn't it a fact in reality that if it's private management, the less money they spend, the more goes to them? So no matter how much we mandate, there's an incentive for them to spend less and more money comes to them. And then thirdly, how is it that the housing authority, there's laws in New York City that mandate fixing of repairs. You have 24 hours to correct immediately hazardous violations. No heat, no hot water, a hole in the ceiling. You have 30 days to correct hazardous violations, and you have 90 days to correct non-hazardous violations. We all know that the housing authority is totally lawless with respect to complying with those kinds of mandates that are required of all private landlords. What do you do about that? How is the housing authority going to be a lawful landlord, or how are these private developers going to be landlords if they don't and have historically never complied to anything close to that?
I don't know if Brian was going to get up to talk more about Section 8 specifically under our current situation, let's say that, but I will just reiterate, what I said earlier, which again, based on historical trends, we see Section 8 as a more viable funding stream than Section 9. With regards to...
We got now.
Sure, but I mean, again, I can't predict the future. I'm sorry, I don't have a magic ball. With regards to property management and their incentives to perform, so I would highlight two things.
Disappears. What do we do?
Again, so I mean, I think I already answered that question here, and I can have Brian come up. But again, we believe that Section 8 is going to be around much longer than Section 9. So that's why we see the conversion to Section 8 as a viable source. As a viable source of funding, specifically for the units in Independence Towers and Williams Plaza, which are unfunded.
So you've got assurances from President Trump that he's going to continue Section 8.
I disagree.
I do not personally have those assurances, but again, I don't know if Brian, if you want to speak a little bit more on this piece. I wanted to address the more specific questions that you asked around property management. So with regards to the incentives for the property manager specifically to perform, the first is that in our agreement, in our partnership agreements, NYCHA has the right to remove a property manager for non-performance. Of course, we're not anticipating having to execute those rights at any point in time, but if we are ever unhappy with the way that manager is performing, and of course residents will have a big part in the input on that, we have the right to require the development team to swap out the property manager.
history of enforcing or implementing.
NYCHA's
laws
never
in-
done this before, though, Marty, right? This is a new program, and these documents are, you know, these are the legally binding documents that, under which we are performing these, or entering into these partnerships. In terms of the financial incentive to perform, so the property management fee is capped within the funding and within the, the financing model for the deal as a whole. And so we know upfront how much the property management fee will be and how it will be generated, and it's not going to change from year to year. So there's not an incentive for the team to do any less work because they already have the property management baked into the financing. And then your last question was with regards to the way that we're going to enforce the inspections, or the repairs that are required as a result of a failed inspection. And that there's actually, correct.
Mandates of the law.
Correct. So it's actually, we now have a financial incentive we have now basically created a financial incentive for those repairs to occur. Because right now, the way that it happens is that NYCHA does everything in-house. Here, what happens is when a Section 8 inspector goes out and performs an inspection and finds a 24-hour failure, NYCHA then immediately notifies the property manager that the failure has to be cured within that time frame. If that failure is not cured, NYCHA can withhold payment. So now there's a financial incentive created for those repairs to happen within the time frames allocated, right? Whether they be 90 days, 24 hours or 30 days in the case of HQS.
Torres.
Tommy Torres, former Cooper Park resident. My mother lives there now. And in terms of the development there, how many units would be affordable? How many units market rate? And who has preference in terms of the affordable units? And do any of the Cooper Park residents have any preference?
Sure. The question was for the development plan at Cooper Park, how many units would there be? How many units would be affordable? And who would have preference, if anyone, including Cooper Park residents? So the amount of units, we anticipate there'd be somewhere between 200 and 250 at the current, what we were thinking. The affordability would be half. So under the next gen plan, the 1.0, I'll call it, it was a 50-50. And then 50% of the revenue generated from that program would go back into repairs at Cooper Park. Under the 2.0 version of that plan, they've changed the affordability levels to MIH levels, so more of a 70-30 with 30% affordable in order to generate more money to put back into the NYCHA buildings, the public housing buildings there, and have committed all of the funding to go back to the host development. So all that money would go back. So again, no decisions. Cooper Park's in a bit of limbo. There's been no RFP issued. We don't have any responses or anything because we were still talking to residents, and so that's our next step, is to go back and talk to those same residents and stakeholders. For the preference, we typically have 25% preference for NYCHA residents in the new affordable units, and then a community board preference on top of that. It's not specific to Cooper Park, but it's NYCHA residents.
Julie.
Brian is NYCHA. How you been?
Very good.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
My question, I have a saying that NYCHA always robs Paul to pay Peter. And I still hold to those words. With the money that's supposed to go into this private building, that's supposed to go back into NYCHA, Cooper Park alone, who and how are you gonna oversee the fact that that money will definitely, wait a minute, let me finish, go into Cooper and not be spread out amongst other development? And I'm gonna stick to my saying that NYCHA has a bad habit of robbing Paul to pay Peter. So how are we gonna be sure that that money's gonna stay in Cooper Park? And being at the fact that we are in limbo, there's no RFP anywhere?
There's no RFP. We are on hold until, and we're going to have a discussion on whether we stick with the 50-50 as originally planned, or move over to a 70-30 model, which would definitely bring in more revenue and keep all the revenue at Cooper Park. So since there's no RFP out, we wouldn't have to change anything. We would have conversations, see which way we're going to go, and then release the RFP after that.
And one of the other changes that I think is the most important is that we would like the same developer and their contractor to do the work to the NYCHA buildings at the same time as the new building is going up. So that's how we would ensure. And we would talk about the scope of work with the residents and elected officials. So that work would be being done at the same time by the same people building the new building. So that's, and we would,
Before the decision is made, how much longer before the RFP goes out?
so we had planned to issue at the end of last year. We sort of, with the 2.0 stuff, we sort of got delayed by about 6 months. So we haven't met with residents yet, but if I were guessing, it would be like 6 months.
When's your next meeting?
We don't have it scheduled, but we were expecting February, March. Probably next month if we can get it scheduled.
Karen?
I just wanted to go back to the MWBE and procurement opportunities. You said that you're not required to secure MWBE contractors or vendors. And can you just explain your procurement schedule? Where are they local businesses that you contract? Do you secure any of your vendors from the city's procurement website?
So this is not what the development RFPs that we put out aren't technically procurements, right? Because we're not entering into a contract and we're not paying a vendor to perform a service. We're entering into a development agreement in some form of or another in order for a development team to come into a partnership with us for either a new building that's being constructed or for a preservation project that, again, the scope of the program is, again, the upfront renovations, which cover the 20-year capital needs of the development, property management, and social services. With regards to our standard procurement of with MSWBEs, I know that in our traditional contracting process, there are certain programs that work with the city's list of registered companies. I know that we send our RFPs out to those companies, but again, we are not looking to have a procurement relationship. We're looking for those entities to come in as part of a development team and bid on or submit a proposal in response to one of our RFPs. Brian, I don't know if you want to say anything further beyond that. And I'm sorry, I can't speak more clearly with regards to our MSWB process because, again, it's part of a type of procurement that our particular programs don't undertake.
So, for instance, any other project that you had, the construction company that you had to build the building, were they local construction companies?
In some cases, yes. I think in all cases, they've been local. In some cases, they have been MSWBEs.
Dana?
Question, are you guys familiar with the Markham Gardens project over in Staten Island? And there's, so that's not what we're talking about,
No,
right?
no.
And so just to finish the thought, nationally, there's been a talk about how we can make this work better for residents, right? And bring down these really tall buildings that were designed for a very specific reason right? We can agree on that.
Yep.
And so why are we moving forward with this plan as opposed to other plans that are happening in places like Atlanta, Staten Island even, that allow residents more ownership over their property, more engagement from the onset about the property, more decision makers, building around community? Why the focus on the privatization of developers versus the focus on the residents and making it an actual feeling like of a residential home?
So both Markham Gardens and Atlanta both brought in private entities, right? You know that. So yeah.
Constructed is different
Right.
than this.
And Markham Gardens was really a difficult project, right? So the development was built out of wood, and termites were eating it. And so it had to be demolished, and private entity came in. A lot of promises were made. This was under the last administration. Our residents were promised a right of return. We learned a lot from that, though, because Even though they were promised a right of return, people weren't told after they were relocated that their credit history would be something that would be taken into account. And if you did not meet a certain credit history, you couldn't return. And most of the residents in that development did not meet that. So we, in this case, like in what Pauline is talking about in Independence Williams, we are not relocating people there. People are staying in their apartment because once people leave their apartment, it is very hard for them to come back. After a while, they don't even, in many cases, they don't want to come back. After you pack up all your stuff, wait 2-3 years for something to be rebuilt, you're like, well, I feel comfortable here, why am I gonna go back to there? So relocation, we no longer think is a good deal. In Atlanta, Atlanta pretty much will privatize their entire housing authority. I mean, it has very few public employees within their housing authority. It is a model that they brag about throughout the country, but in New York, what we're looking to do is keep as much public ownership as possible within the housing authority. And it is, we get criticized a lot, with big industry groups because we look to be a bit of a relic in the fact that we're hanging on to a public model, whereas other cities have totally privatized.
Okay. Tish?
What is the status of the parking lot that was supposed to be eliminated at Cooper Park? Build housing, what is happening in that area?
Right, so.
The people there at Cooper Park fought against that.
Yeah.
And I was in support of their concerns.
Right. So that's the project that I was talking about earlier. That's sort of, we met with the residents and elected officials in summer. We've been reworking the program a little bit, so it hasn't moved forward since we last met with them in the summer. And we're planning to go back out and meet with them in February or March.
Alexis?
Hasn't been any action since the summer, no.
That's the issue.
What's that?
As well as the issue with the conditions at Cooper Park. Why isn't something being done now? Must we wait for new people to come in? Privatize to get a lot of the conditions improved there at Cooper Park?
I mean, there's a number of serious conditions at Cooper Park. The point of this program is one solution to try to find the money to address those long-term capital needs. I don't know if there's any specific conditions that you want to talk to, or.
The needs at Cooper Park are great, and they're way larger than anything that the federal government is providing. I would love to come in here and say, we have a congressional delegation within New York City that fights really hard for public housing, but they are outnumbered, even with the majority that we currently have right now. So I would love to be coming in and say the federal government once again believes in public housing, and they're going to pour a boatload of capital money, in places like Cooper Park, and we could take care of all their needs. Unfortunately, I can't say that. So we have to look for alternative sources of revenue in order to take care of those needs.
Alexis?
Sure. So yes, I just want to say a few things about the RAT and PAC. I do believe that they're great, and the other council member also do believe that will work. We're planning to do a trip to some of our TA, our tenant association leaders from our district, to go to Saratoga Square. So this morning I was meeting with Alican Prisamos, which is the public housing chair, and we discussed some of the things that Brian Honan have mentioned and his team. But the thing that I just want to mention about Cooper Park is that, to my understanding, there's no chair in NYCHA, so it was on hold. And yes, we've been having a lot of meetings, back and forth, community meetings with the leaders and with NYCHA. So that's good that you're looking to meet with us, meet with the community, and find out what we can do. But I just wanted to inform the community, Community Board 1, that there's also something that has been missing here. NYCHA was declared by Letitia James when she was a public advocate, the worst landlord of New York City. That's one thing, and also the other thing is like NYCHA has been sued in the federal court. So there's been a Judge Pauly who have rejected, I think, and I can be corrected, rejected twice the settlement from NYCHA. So I believe
Two different ones, yes. Two different ones. Yeah, that's how.
Twice, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
I know that now it's Judge.
Same judge, two different settlements.
So they rejected the settlement, so that means that NYCHA is in precarious condition, and I think, and I can be corrected again, that they need to come out with a settlement at the end of this month, January. And I do believe that that money from that settlement can be very helpful to NYCHA to make the improvement without having to rely on parking lots.
Wow.
So I just want to inform you of that you're going around in circles about RAD, PAC, which I do believe that they're good, but the next gen, that's another topic. So I just wanted to inform you that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Somebody over here had their hand up. Okay, Tom.
When you're going to be privatizing, what's the status of the employees going to be? Are they going to be able to organize anymore? Are they going to be private employers that are right to work, not unionized? Are they going to lose their pensions? Are they going to lose their health benefits? What's happening to all these employees who are suddenly working for a private management company?
Yep, no, they won't. So the employees at the developments under RAD will be given a choice. Number one, they can stay with the new development, or they can continue with NYCHA and be deployed to another development. So far in our experience, employees decide to stay with NYCHA and work in another development. Why? Because they're municipal employees with tremendous benefits, including pension. A lot of them are built up over time. Why, if you're, if you work for NYCHA for 20 years, why would you want to give that up, when especially if your pension is for 25 years? So no one's losing their position, and we will augment staff, in other developments. And so this way, one of the after funding and repairs, the biggest complaint I hear from residents is that my development is not staffed the way it needs to. So this will help in that way.
No, but the new staff that you're going to be hiring through these private management companies, are they going to get some kind of $15 an hour job with no benefits, no pension, no other, because they're private employees now, and they're like the second-class citizen employees of the housing projects?
So, yep.
That's another thing about privatization. Take over the property and then cut everybody out of union organizations.
So to be clear, NYCHA is not hiring these employees, right? The new property management entity is hiring the employees. NYCHA has agreed to a wage standard of 80% of prevailing wage according to the city comptroller's schedule for building service workers, and that's for both wages and benefits. So and also the right to unionize will continue to be there. And we've seen so far in all of the developments, a union come in, and each of the property management staff have been unionized to date. Unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but NYCHA legally can't mandate that that the new property management use unions. But it has, again, the practice is that each of the teams has been unionized.
But it's going to be 80% of the prevailing wage, so they're going to get less than what somebody else is getting.
So, and
you're hiring cheaper workers, non-unionized, no benefits.
So
this
they're
is
not,
supposed to be,
we
this
can't
is
mandate
the future
it.
of America.
So we can't mandate a union. So it's up to you, because the workers need to decide whether they want to be part of a union or not. It's also, we're having conversations with SEIU 32BJ, who represent most of the workers who work in the building service union that I worked with before I was at NYCHA. And about what are the wages that would be comparable to wages, for 32BJ workers. So it is something that we're definitely mindful of, and it's conversations that we're having with them, and definitely getting really good advice from them.
Ben.
Thank you. I just wanted to sort of echo a little bit of what Alexis said. We have 4 developments in our district, plus doing RAD or PAC, plus an infill project or whatever now. So it's affecting a lot of our constituents. We have met with all 3 of these people several times. RAD impact, we have a lot of questions, but we do think, if you're worried about Section 8 going away, Marty, think about trying to just get more funding. They're not going to give a penny more in the few years to come, and this is a solution that has a lot of issues, and we're going to keep pressing to make sure that the tenants are treated well and that their rights are respected. But we also have to do something, or else they're going to continue to live in the standards that we don't think are acceptable. So we're going to continue to work with them and our constituents towards that end. Thank you for coming out here tonight to talk about it, and we'll hopefully get out to Bayside 2 soon. So we have, out of our 7 developments, 5 of them are going through some kind of transition, and it's a big issue. So we hope the community board will work with us as we go through these as well.
You heard from elected officials, and
I echo their sentiments. Brian, you have been a frequent flyer over here. Over the past.
He said frequent.
Huh? Okay, over the past years, you have been here and you only heard complaints. And that is that the service is bad, what's going to happen over here. So to me, it's like I'm puzzled. Why, on one hand, we have been always upset that things are not done at NYCHA. Now, when somebody comes in and offers something new, we say no, don't do that. So, do we want improvements or we don't want improvements? The people who live here, give me a second. The people who live in the project, the people on the committee, hear from the tenants associations how desperately it needs change. Here is a change that we hope is going to be for the better. And we can, as Alexis said, they're going to go to Saratoga, whatever Square to visit it. Let people who are afraid, let them go there. Let them see that with their own eyes. They say in Spanish, seeing is believing. Let you go down and see that, and then you will decide if you want or don't want. But I think what we have heard at the committee, at the Tenants Association, the feeling is that we must have that change, and we will keep on it, and the community ought to make sure that the promises made are going to be kept.
Okay. We appreciate all the work that everybody's doing, but we felt like the community should know what everybody else knows.
Thank you.
We're trying to inform the community.
Wonderful, that's good. That's good, thank you.
Thank you.
We have a lot of people that don't understand what's going on. You know, but the majority of us don't know. This session is to inform the community and bring them up to date on what's going on with NYCHA. Yes, Dave.
What you're saying is all fine and dandy, but, and the same thing with the rabbi, but see, there's certain communities that are here that are pretty much taken care of, and they really don't have too many issues like that, whereas you have a lot of communities that do have a problem. And then the other thing too with the employment, now you're gonna bring on a private sector here to bring new people, basis to the people that are already here, that are already city workers, to non-city workers, and whether they're gonna, if the non-city worker people or the private sector doesn't have a union, and the city workers have a union, that seems like a conflict of interest amongst employees. You know, and that does happen. Okay, and then now the next problem becomes, okay, fine, we're gonna have them have a union as well. So now you're gonna have two different unions, and this, you know, it's a formula for chaos in the future. Okay, and to include even pensions and medical benefits and all of these things that, you know, come into play. Now, like I said before, there are some affordable housing, there's some projects that you can see that have issues, and then there's some projects that they don't have no issues because they're a tightly knit community, which is nothing wrong with that, but you have to allow the other projects and the other places of development to have that same kind of private knit community as well, because that's a fair playing field. When you're not playing with a fair playing field, you're gonna have issues like what you have now.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate the comment.
Are there any other questions? Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Department of City Planning.
Sanitation.
I'm talking sanitation, DSNK. Department of Sanitation. Ladies and gentlemen, please listen up. This item has to be voted on tonight, so let's listen so we get ready to vote. We don't have a whole lot of questions. Let's stop all the sidebars and all the extra meetings. This issue will be voted on tonight, so please listen carefully.
Yeah.
Good evening, CB1. Happy New Year. My name is Andre De Leon. I represent the Department of Sanitation. I'm Deputy Director of Real Estate. Along here with me is our intern, James Hall, and also our Assistant Commissioner, Orlana Davis. I'm here today to present the ULURP application that's on the agenda. I believe it's items 4 and 5, and we'll try and combine them together because even though there are two separate ULURPs, it's still one operation. It represents our Brooklyn 3 garage operations. So quickly, I'll go through it. The BK Community District 3 garage is located currently at 525 Johnson Avenue in Bushwick in Community Board 1. It is a single-story brick building that houses our personnel and some of our equipment. 145 Randolph Street is a 39,000 square foot parking lot that's directly across the street. We hold our trucks and our spreaders over there and park them off the street. Back in 2001, a site for a new CD3 garage at 60 Nostrand Avenue was approved, but unfortunately, funding was not available to the city until recently in 2016. The proposed site at 60 Nostrand Avenue will fulfill commitments that we made to the community, leaving the site here and moving to CB3, where the garage will be hosted in the district that it currently serves. Right now, we are the current operations are the trucks leave along the garage, goes down Flushing Avenue, and is served in several sections. Nothing would change via this application. We want to continue to have to deliver services to Community Board. During that time, we hope to have our new garage constructed. Now, I did give out a few pamphlets. I did also send an email attachment to the board. Maybe they'll put it up on the line, maybe not, I don't know, showing the new garage that's proposed over on Nostrand Avenue. Currently, we have 119 employees working 24 hours, 6 days a week. Our peak shift is from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. On our peak day, we have 35 trucks that leave for trash collection and street cleaning. We average about 143 vehicle trips per day, and currently BK3 holds 80 pieces of equipment. I had a map here showing our current operations, but like I said, we're currently working on trying to secure funding and a date to start construction on a new garage over at 60 Nostrand Avenue that I know Mr. Esposito knows very well. It's been a very long and tried process here to try and secure a new garage. As you do know, CB1 was one of the first garages, locations to have a LEED certified garage over at Varick Avenue, which hosts districts 1 and 4. And it is our goal to relieve the burden that this community board has in terms of hosting a multitude of sanitation facilities. We hope that with the securing of this ULURP, we can continue to deliver service to Community Board 3 and at the same time have enough time to construct the new garage over at Nostrand Avenue. The new garage will be also aimed to be LEED certified. It's a very nice building we have proposed here. And here's a couple of renderings that I have here. This will be on Nostrand and Flushing Avenue and Park. We're hoping for CB approval for continued use of the current BK3 garage. And once construction is completed, DSNY intends to vacate the current BK3 garage at 525 Johnson and 145 Randolph and to move into this new location at 60 Nostrand Avenue. Our construction schedule is as follows. We hope to break ground in 2019. We need to demolish the old site right now that's currently on at 60 Nostrand Avenue. And the period of construction would take roughly 36 to 42 months.
You're ready for questions?
I am ready for questions.
Marty?
What's going to happen to the old site on Johnson? Who bought it?
Well, we'll vacate it upon completion of the building.
4 years. In 4 years.
No, we're leasing it. It's being leased. It's a private entity.
Problem is here, what is the alternative? They don't have a site. You have to give them breathing space.
Is it zoned for housing?
No,
It's properly zoned.
How long have you been using Johnson and Randolph?
BK3 has been there since 2007, 2008.
Continue of use? Did it expire?
The license agreement expired, correct. So we need to renew the agreement. We want to maintain our tenancy there during this time of construction. The last few years, we didn't have funding, and that was a bone of contention with the community board, and rightly so. Due to the efforts of our commissioner, we were able to get funding back into the budget, and the money's ready, the bids are out, and we're hoping to break ground this year at the new location.
Tom?
This is a horrible presentation for something that has to be voted on tonight. I mean, why does it have to be voted on tonight, and why is he reading from an 8x11 sheet where we have these giant screens and stuff that can be mailed to us? This is the City Department of Sanitation. This is like last month when Elliot Spitzer came in here at the last minute and said, oh, and we didn't have enough people to vote. I mean, why do we have to vote on this tonight?
Because the clock expires before the next board meeting.
But he's talking about he had money in 2016, it's now 2019. Like, why is the sanitation operating this way? And why are we getting BK3 garages in BK1? We have enough stuff in BK1.
But that's the goal. We're trying to get out.
That's why I propose the board vote no.
I would vote no, just as like, why are they coming at this last minute when it's like the last second? It's not like there's, you know.
That's a question.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Is
what's the question?
You have a question?
What's the question?
I mean, that was a statement, but the question was, why are you here late and not early?
What do you consider late? What do you consider early? We only submitted the application not too long ago.
When did you submit the application?
The application was submitted in, what, December.
Okay, good. Okay.
Are there any other, Karen?
So let's say if we did vote no, then where would you go?
I don't know.
I mean, you've been
Well,
using
see,
the
that's
facility now.
understood, and it will go through the ULURP process, the community board, the borough president's office. Worst case scenario, it'll be via a license agreement, but under those terms, the landlord reserves the right to evict us if he sees fit, and then that'll open up another, situation there. So via this ULURP, we were hoping to avoid that by having a full lease that will cover us for the time that we will have construction of the garage during that period.
Marty?
That was the question.
Bye-bye.
So for how long are you asking a lease?
Those terms to be determined, but as I stated before, the construction period, we are looking at between 4 and 5 years for the garage. Our goal is to deliver services to this community to the community board during that time. But we need a place for our crew, our staff, and personnel to be during the time of that construction.
So what you're saying is as follows, that if, yes, you have no other current location where to go.
Oh, no.
So therefore, if I understood what you said before, that if the community board votes no, okay, it goes to the ULURP process, and what does one expect that at the end of the ULURP process is going to happen based on the fact that there's currently no other location? That's question number one. Question number two is, so when you're going to ask a lease, I'm asking again the question, are you going then to ask for 3-4 years? Is that?
Those terms will be to be determined. We generally like to do something for 10 years to insulate ourselves from cost overruns or delays. But like I said, our goal is to ultimately leave this facility. So that's our ultimate goal. We don't intend on wanting to be here forever.
trying to figure out, what is the problem with the current location, what it is now? What is the issue?
Well, the issue is we have a BK3 garage inside Community Board 1. It's generally our preference to have garages are in the location that the area that they serve. This garage has been approved by Board 3. It's been the goal for sanitation to vacate this facility for some time, but we've had many obstacles that's prevented us from moving forward with this project. I'm sure, as the community board knows, Brooklyn 1 and 4 was a long, hard battle, but we eventually did get a garage there that serves the community. And part of our goal also was to have Community Board 3 garage go to its rightful location inside Community Board 3, thus leaving here. I'm sure that's something we can all agree on, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Rob.
Specifically, you're asking this board to vote on.
We're asking for them to vote on the ULURP applications for the garage at 525 Johnson and 145 Randolph to ensure continued tenancy under a lease agreement.
You're asking for more time, basically, right?
No, extension of the lease.
It's a lease. It's a term of a lease.
Yeah. And so we say no. What happened? That was, I didn't carry on Rabbi's question, which was if we say no, then the lease goes in and then you can't.
The lease will be, if it goes no and it gets disapproved, we'll negotiate a license agreement, but it will not be a lease. In which case, that will give the landlord the right to evict us on a 30-day notice.
Got it. Okay.
Or a month to maintain.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Maybe I missed this. Was there, is the new building, like, where's the timeline wise? Has it been out to bid? Is there?
5 years.
Yeah, thankfully, it went out to bid this fall. We have some bids in. We're ready to break ground in 2019.
Yes, was Chester?
Yes, I just try to understand this. You're setting up a temporary facility for trucks until you're building a new facility in CD3. Was that understood correctly?
Yes, we need enough time while we continue to deliver services for the garage to be constructed over in CB3.
You won't end up with increased truck traffic and garbage in our.
There'll be no change. What you're having right now will not change. What's going on today will go on for the next duration of this lease. The actions will not change.
However, were you to go to another area, it would alleviate traffic in this district.
You're going to get some of the same traffic along a couple of the routes, but there will be ultimately be a decrease in your neighborhood, correct? Because we will be in CB3. We'll cut maybe about a good mile and a half from the travel to the travel sector from where we are now.
Marty.
How can you convince us that there's not a site in Bedford-Stuyvesant that could be a garage? Is there no place in Bed-Stuy, that Community Board 3, that could accommodate a garage space for trucks like this?
We have an approved ULURP for a location already in Bed-Stuy within Community Board 3.
They have a site in Community
now.
Board
I
3,
mean
and they're
now.
trying to go to Community Board 3 and get out of our community.
I mean, use it now. No, even that space could be used temporarily, I suppose. It's a vacant lot.
It's not a vacant lot. There's a building and there's also land behind there. And there's a tenant on the site right now.
But there's no place throughout Community Board 3 where you can have a vacant lot to park these trucks. It's hard for us to believe.
What?
I think that if you can elaborate a little bit more, what happens, and you have a situation where it was ultimately disapproved, okay, and then you went to licenses, what has happened? I mean, isn't it in the interest of making sure that there's less disruption, okay, in CB3 having pickups, and also here, if you go through a license process and you get an eviction notice, that will create chaos. Is that right?
There is a potential for chaos, correct? I mean, but
Is that more when you go to a fixed time on a lease, is that more secure that the services are going to be going on both in BK3 and even here more orderly?
I'm trying to understand the question. You're asking about the lease versus license agreement?
Yes.
Well, the lease would be ironclad. We'll be determined to continue our service and without the fear or the specter of eviction. The license agreement, the landlord will still get paid the same way. However, in light of what you have seen these days in the environment in terms of people from out of town wanting to purchase property in manufacturing areas, we would not like to leave the chance that the landlord may see something bigger and more illustrious for himself, for his pockets, at the expense of delivering services to the community district.
One other question, when you say, and Marty said, isn't there a vacant lot? If one would go to try to take a vacant lot, you'll have to go through a process.
It won't happen overnight anyway. It's a process.
You have to go through okay, so now we understand, more rational.
Yes.
Right over here. I have a couple questions. What do the residents say about that? How long is it gonna be a lease? Are the trucks gonna be maintained? Because they stink in the summertime.
Our trucks are stay on off street in the parking lot at 145 Randolph. Our trucks are often washed. They have a cycle. They're periodically washed. The garage here is located in the manufacturing area, so the nearest residence is at least half a mile away. So that's one of the benefits of this location here. We're off the beaten path. We're in a manufacturing zone. I want also to note that the new garage is also in the manufacturing zone. So those are the things that we try to look for when we cite a sanitation garage.
Yes.
Now, my question is that if by being evicted, is a possibility we're gonna have garbage trucks parked all over in the streets instead of being in a,
Well, that's something that we.
They're gonna do it over here, whatever they want. They're not gonna be ticketed.
Right. Well, it'll be. We hope to never go down that doomsday scenario, but we hope to not. We hope to avoid that. We really don't want to have that situation.
Okay.
I had one more question about the site in CB3. It's currently vacant, or there's a tenant on the site?
There's a tenant on the site, correct, right now.
And when does that lease expire?
There's actually expired last month. So that's why I told you that 2019 was our target year of breaking ground.
But they're still there after having a lease?
Yes, it's in litigation right now. So once they get off, that's we can then get the ball moving on.
Who is that tenant?
Monroe Bus Company.
Monroe Bus Company.
Tom?
How long has the Department of Sanitation been using these two sites under what kind of an arrangement? Because you use the word continued use, but you want approval of acquisition. So is the acquisition getting a lease, or are you buying it?
Correct. Acquisition to get a lease.
So if you're acquiring something with a lease, you must have some kind of time frame, not just maybe 3 or 4 years or 10 years. You must be negotiating some kind of time frame right now that you're not telling us.
No, I said to you, we generally like to go, for a situation like this.
Generally is not a specific number. That's generally. That's like generally cloudy outside. It's like you guys want to have that place open for a certain period of time. So you're negotiating with the owner of this for a lease. I don't get a lease for my apartment for 2.5 months. I get a year's lease. So how long have you been at this location, and have you had 10-year leases, 10-year leases, 10-year leases?
When it comes to the city, terms are usually to be determined via DCAS and the landlord. As I said before, we've been here since 2007 at this particular site.
So what was your lease for that period of time?
We applied for a ULURP back then, and we withdrew it. It was a license agreement, and it was a 10-year agreement, and it expired last year, which is why we're back here again to apply to make sure that we're able to secure a tenancy here. If you say no, That is your right. We'll have to operate under the same terms that we had prior. But at least in this time, as in 2007, I was here, and I was not able to tell the community board about funding or when we'll have funding or when construction would be. There were many unanswered questions. I come back here today having funding and having a potential start date for construction, which is why we are returning to try and ask to get another lease.
Try and get the powerful Monroe Bus Company to move off their lot.
Correct.
Marty?
You said that you're not near residential houses. Aren't you close to Marcy Tompkins and Sumner?
Across the street from there, from the location where we're going to, that location is manufacturing zone. We had the approval of the Community Board 3 to build this garage. We have their support.
But where you are now, you're close to residential.
No, we're not.
You're on.
Johnson,
Which is one block from Flushing.
which is all manufacturing. Waste management is one block down.
Isn't Sumner Tompkins and isn't the public housing right on Flushing area?
Yep.
You talking about the new one or the old one?
The nearest residential is about half a mile away.
Marcy.
Are all on Flushing Avenue?
You talk about the new one or the
No,
old
the
one?
existing housing.
No, the new location is across from Marcy houses, yes.
Right in front.
I thought the old location is not that far either, right?
No.
It's 2 blocks.
Half a block away, half a mile away.
If you have the presentation, there's a map there showing the distances from the. We're sited in an industrial location.
Marty, the new one is right in front of Marcy Cross, the old one is half a mile in.
Are there any other questions? You want to do the second part now? It's all combined, or you finished?
That was all. It was all combined.
Okay, thank you so much. Item number 6, application for special permit to reduce required parking. North 10th Street.
No, because somebody said it's a good favor to stay. We should know it was.
Yeah, one of these
Did you saw this? You don't read it.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, I didn't get the correction.
Who's doing the presentation?
That comes out my notes. Now, the people with the but I didn't realize when I looked at the notes. Okay.
Excuse me, could all ULIP committee step out into the hallway, please? All ULIP committee members, step out into the hallway, please. It doesn't have to be voted on.
They'll come to the committee. They come to the committee.
Don't start without it.
You were committee.
Huh?
No.
No, go
Because
ahead.
you're gonna have to come back to the committee anyway. So,
This item doesn't have to be voted on, so you gotta come back to them anyway. Okay.
Hi, my name is Ben Stark. I'm an attorney with Slater and Beckerman PC. We're a land use law firm here in the city. And tonight, we're here to present an application for a special permit to the Board of Standards and Appeals that would permit the reduction of parking associated with the office uses that will be part of a new building to be constructed at the corner of North 10th Street and Roebling Street. A presentation that we wanted to present on these big screens is being handed out. Hopefully there's enough for at least one for each table. They're on big 11 by 17. You'll be able to see a rendering of the building as well as its location and some big facts about the building. But generally, the proposed building is a 6-story combined mixed-use residential and commercial building. It's approximately a 64,000 square foot building. The residential component includes 31 new condominium units, and the office portion located on a portion of the ground floor, the second floor, and the full third floor totals around 31,000 square feet. The building is unique in that it is a true mixed-use building. It is almost a 50-50 split between commercial, the first 3 floors, at around 31,000 square feet, and the residential component, which is floors 4, 5, and 6 at about 34,000 square feet. Where it's being constructed on the corner of Roebling and North 10th Street is also a number of 6-story buildings, some existing old warehouse buildings that have been converted, other new construction buildings that I'm sure many of you have seen. A lot of those buildings are only residential. We think our building is nice and unique in that it's going to bring jobs to the area and provide some amount of street-level retail for the local community. So the application itself is only limited to reducing the parking associated with that office function. So as I'm sure all of you are aware, the zoning resolution requires parking for a variety of uses here in the city, including residential uses here in Brooklyn, but as well as office uses and retail uses. So here in this building, the parking that is required for the residential, which is total 16 spaces for the 31 units, that is being built. The parking that is required for the office portion, we are seeking a reduction from 102 spaces associated with that 30,000 square feet down to 51. And to put that into context, the zoning resolution, in its requirement for 1 parking space for every 300 square feet of office space, would equate to approximately requiring 1 parking space for every single office user in an office like this, because studies have shown that in many offices, we typically see about 3 to 4 people per 1,000 square feet. So having the zoning resolution require 1 space for every 300 square feet, the math roughly equals out to the zoning resolution basically requiring a parking space for every single office user. That is not net, the demand, that far exceeds the demand for the number of parking spaces for the office. So we're seeking a reduction in half per this special permit that allows us to do that. And we believe that the 51 spaces that we will provide for the office it still exceeds the demand. Our studies have shown that in this particular area on the north side of Williamsburg, typically about 10 to 15% at most of office users will drive. Most people use public transportation, or they will walk in this area. I'm sure in other areas of Brooklyn, more people will drive, but in this particular area that is reasonably well served by public transportation, we don't expect 100% of the office users to need a parking spot. So that's the entirety of the application. It's just to reduce the parking for the office. I really wish I could have had it up on the screen so you guys can see the building and the surrounding area a little better. I'm hoping that people at the tables are sharing the handout. But I'm here. I have the owner, a representative of the developer here, Mike Zampetti, who can answer questions. I can answer questions. We also have a few other consultants. So we're here and open to questions.
Are there any questions? Emily?
What's the environmental status of this site?
That's a great question.
And what's your plan to address that?
That's a great question, and that's perfect for Mike.
Sure. So the site, as most of Williamsburg, has a Little E designation on it. It has contamination from historical uses on the site. It's our intent to remediate the site per the state's guidelines to track 1, which means that we're remediating the site completely. So It's a 180 by 100 square site. We're digging down well into the water table, which means we're going to basically remove all the contamination at the site. And the site has been approved by the state's brownfield program. So you'll see, actually you see activity on site right now, which is just further delineating the contaminants.
Just to clarify, so your proposal wouldn't change the remediation plan?
No, they're totally unrelated.
Are there any other questions? Iris?
If we decide to approve this proposal, is anything for the community? Are you guys willing to do any affordable housing in the 31 unit that you guys building?
There is no affordable component, but one of the elements that we are doing, we've applied and been approved for an ICAP, which is a tax abatement on the commercial space. And one of the requirements of the tax abatement is that the construction be bid to women minority businesses. So for all trades, for all purchasing, we have to go out to 3 within each group, minority businesses. So that's part of what we're doing.
If we're willing to approve this, is anything for the community besides that?
There's no affordable component, but we did buy affordable tax certificates as part of the development itself.
What we mean by that is the development and completion of the 31 units of market rate housing in this particular building will also result in the permanent affordability of units elsewhere in the neighborhood. Where those units are, we can't speak to that right now, but they're called inclusionary housing certificates that by purchasing them and utilizing square footage on this particular project, there is an associated development elsewhere in the neighborhood that can never be, that a certain amount of square footage in that development can never not be affordable housing. It is in perpetuity. That's an as-of-right program that the city has.
Tom?
This is a condo project?
It is a split, so the top 3 floors condo, bottom 3 floors commercial office, some small amount of retail.
Residential part is condo, I'll be clear.
Yes, sir.
So the parking spaces will be for sale for the residential people?
So the parking spaces are available to everybody, right? So whether the residents, we have more parking.
Sale, or are you just gonna go park in there?
So they're either going to be rented or sold. So we have a total of 77 parking spaces and 31 residential units that are there. Residents will have the right, we have not determined yet whether we're going to rent the spaces, which would mean we would have a third-party operator who would own the parking garage, or if we would sell some of those units to residents. That has not been a decision that's made.
Rob?
Usually when we do projects like this, similar comps in the north side, they usually have an incredible community give back, usually some manufacturing that's part of it, or there's an affordable housing part of it. Now usually when I don't see that, there's like either a parking study done that someone would give us and say, hey, there's like spots always empty on this block in this corner, there really is no need for parking. I don't see in this report as a parking study done to show us, hey, there's always an available spot on the corner, we really don't need parking here.
That's a really good question. And as part of our BSA application, that parking study was prepared and submitted. That parking study was delivered to the community board as part of our required distribution. I also have a copy of it on a jump drive in my pocket that I'm going to give to the community board. I can send a PDF later on. But that parking study, which Joe McKenzie from Philip of Even Associates can speak to tonight, does indeed show that there are some available parking spots in the neighborhood, but more than that, the 77.
I would love
I'm
to
right
hear.
there are none.
You're standing there at 2 o'clock in the morning. I would love to hear him talk about parking, private carrying park.
There's no parking there.
All right, so as part of, so we did a survey, we did a parking demand for the building itself, but in anticipation that those 77 spaces are completely full and parking has to go onto the streets or off-street public garages, we did a survey of street capacity as well as private public garages. And so what we did these surveys in March and April of last year between 12 and 1, which are midday peak periods. and we estimate a capacity, and it's 1/4 mile around the site. And so we estimated there are 2,046 spaces, and 90% of those are occupied, and so there's 360 available at any given time.
When you say available, that's included garages, correct? Or
No,
that's
this is
street?
off. This is on street, and then so off street capacity. Within our study area, we identified 5 public garages, and they have a licensed capacity of 411 vehicles. And through speaking with attendants, 84% of the garages were occupied, which leaves an available 66 spaces during that peak time. So our study shows that there are parking spaces available for the public, or for if the building's garage reaches capacity, there are available spaces elsewhere.
I think the point that we want, and we understand that the community understands how much available parking that there is better than anyone. I mean, I live in Park Slope. There's no parking. Someone could tell me that there's parking. I know there's not any parking. But the main point that we want you to understand is that this parking study's most important fact is that the building itself is only, at maximum, is only going to generate a demand of 40 some odd spaces. We're providing 77. So at any given time, there is likely going to be, and that's at peak demand. So at any given time, there's likely to be 30 or 40 unused spaces in our garage that could be rented out to the community.
Madam, just to be clear, and to be honest, you don't know who your commercial tenants are, right?
That's correct.
So if you put a mini market there, people were driving there, you have no idea who your client is.
No.
You don't know that.
No, I do know that. We're not renting to a mini market. It's an office. You
know what the office is, right?
We don't
Which is
know
fair,
who-
because you don't know. You don't know who
Sure,
your tenants
sure.
are
We
until
don't
you
know
put it
who the
out.
office tenant is. But an office tenant is very different from a supermarket. A supermarket has a lot bigger of a parking demand, and of course, we wouldn't come here and
You don't
pull a
know
fast
who your
one.
tenants are.
That's true.
And you don't
but
know what the parking demand is for that tenant.
To-
Which
to-
is why the parking laws exist.
To assume that there would be a parking demand for this office space of 100%, meaning every single person who works in that office space drives a car, there is not an office building in the city that has
I
that.
don't disagree with that point, but you're asking us for a special permit. So what's so special about your project? Other than it saves your client money. It'll save your client money, right?
That's not the point of the special permit. The point of the
What
special
is the point?
the point of the special permit is to be able to construct office space. We don't want to do.
You can do your office space with parking.
No, we can't. We could do a strictly residential building, perhaps, because that would require, in totality, less parking spaces. The amount of parking spaces that we can provide is generally fixed. So either this building is going to be a completely residential building without any office spaces, without any jobs associated with those office spaces, or it's going to be residential without office. I mean, that's the dynamic that we're working with. We can't provide more parking.
How many bicycle spaces are there?
That's a good question.
We currently have, and I can get you the exact number, but I believe we have 45 parking spaces for the residential units and another like 42 for the office space. Yeah.
Just for my clarity, why go to the store? Why not just put resi with parking?
Because they want to build office.
I mean,
Give me some childhood vision why you want commercial space here.
Sure.
Yeah, dream.
We've
Some dream here.
been long-term developers in Brooklyn for the last 10 years. We're big believers in Brooklyn. I'm finishing a commercial building on North 7th Street right now. We believe in the commercial vitality of Brooklyn, that not everybody wants to live in one of the boroughs and, commute into Manhattan. So when we looked at this project, we looked at it as having a very viable commercial corridor. We think that there's a lot of opportunity for creative agencies, smaller agencies that don't want to pay the absurd prices of Manhattan. And we also think that there's been a real transition to Brooklyn that makes sense to have something that is unique, where there is a commercial element and there is a residential element associated with it.
Do you have another project that has this permit?
Do I? No, I do not. but I believe there are other projects.
No, of course, we've
Yeah.
approved these before.
Yeah, I personally do not have
This
another
will be your
project
first one.
that has this special permit. Correct.
Dave?
Okay, you said you specialize in commercial, and you had commercial in Manhattan, now you wanna do commercial here?
No. I said we've historically been invested in and working in Brooklyn. I do have another commercial building in Williamsburg right now on North 7th Street, but I didn't reference Manhattan.
Okay, now, as far as with the commercial stuff, have you talked to any of the tenant associations in that area? Any of the community organizations that they have other than?
No.
In other words, the people directly around that area.
That was mine.
That have tenant associations, that have all kinds of groups and all kinds of, have any of those been, have any of those?
I've spoken to our neighbors to the immediate north, 214 North 11th Street. They surround us on we're a corner parcel, and they surround us on our other two parcels. They're very aware of what we're doing, but no, I have not spoken with any other tenant associations in the area.
Are they 100% for what you're doing?
I cannot say that they're 100% for it. I've only met with their condo association, with the board.
What was their outcome of it?
They were happy that, one, something was being developed on the site, two, that we were remediating the site, and three, they were fine with the fact that we have commercial.
With parking and all that, we're happy with that too?
They did not complain about the parking.
Were they aware, would you make them aware?
Yes, they're aware of it. We showed them the plans.
Somebody was talking and you didn't raise your hand. You got a question?
I'm gonna make a comment. I live around the corner. I can vehemently complain about it on the record right now. No one's approached the area that I'm aware of.
Is there any other
We-
question?
Can I just say one thing to that? This is why we're here. This application is not before the BSA yet. We don't have a hearing date. Hearing date's not gonna be for months. Here we are. So we're happy
There
to.
is no parking, ever,
And
anywhere in the north side.
But we're adding additional parking.
Yeah, we are very confident.
For pay.
Right, but if I did nothing on the site, it doesn't change the dynamic of what the parking situation is on the north side.
We're-
You're adding to the congestion that we already have.
We think that we're actually reducing it by adding, on average, 40, but usually more empty parking spaces with the new building.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? We're quickly running out of time here. Are there any other questions? Thank you so much. I think you'll be going to the committee.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Liquor license, can you call up the speakers on liquor license, please?
Nancy Wechter, Ike Moran. And following the comments on the liquor license, we're looking for the Sidewalk Cafe comments. That's Tom Hamelin and Dennis Tompkins.
Right, begin.
Yep.
Ready? Okay. My name is Nancy Wechter. I represent the Fillmore Place Historic District Association. I'm a 35-year resident of this community, and community and diversity are really important to me. And I'm here to speak against a liquor license at 242 Metropolitan Avenue for Tacombe Holdings, LLC, which is a chain of taco restaurants. And I would like to say that you can and they're applying for a full liquor license. This position where this restaurant is adjacent to the La Suarez subsidized housing. It is less than 200 feet from Jarka Hall. It is adjacent from the Fillmore Place Historic District. And there are 20 liquor licenses within 500 feet, including several taco places. Tacombe is going to be right across the street from the Pod Hotel's Salvation Taco Bar, where you can also get a margarita. It's around the corner from San Loco, where you can also get a margarita and tacos. It is down the block from Tacos Diana, and on North 3rd Street. I've got them all mapped out. On North 3rd, you have yeah, I mean, we even have Korean tacos a block away. There is no damn community benefit whatsoever about a liquor license here. I'd like to read you a quote that I took from the internet. It says, yes, Tacombe is all about tacos, but it is also a great place to drink. And I would like to say, I know that this community prefers to do restaurants. We have too many. We have too many chains. We're overrun with tourists at this particular vulnerable spot. I don't know if you remember the church statue being pushed over, but anyway, enough is enough. And there are issues with ventilation, with hours, with enforcement of ventilation, with noise from equipment on the roof, which is adjacent to homes. So it's inappropriate here. Thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. I'm Isaiah Moran. I live right next door to that facility. I was born and raised in Williamsburg, and we really don't need another restaurant. You know, how is that beneficial to the families that live there? I just don't see it. You know, with the crowd control, the noise, the vents, I live directly right towards the backside of that. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of that awful smell or whatever it is that's going to be coming out of there. The hangout in the front concerns me because I have to walk with my child past that facility home. And the things that we hear right now across the street from the Pod Hotel, there is a bar at the corner right next to the Pod Hotel. I just don't see, you know, the benefit to the community or to the families that live there. That's all I really have to say at this point.
Hi, my name is Tom Hamline. I live on Driggs Avenue, been there since 1985. I'd like to speak in opposition to the application for sidewalk tables from the Pod Hotel on Metropolitan and Driggs. There are 4 reasons why their application for unenclosed sidewalk cafes should be turned down. Number 1, at their December meeting, the CB1's SLA committee unanimously denied their application for sidewalk cafe because they said it's already noisy and it would increase late night noise. We support this unanimous decision. Number 2, the Pod Hotel has not complied with the liquor license that was granted to them in October 2017 by the State Liquor Authority. At that time, the State Liquor Authority commanded the Pod to install a canopy made of acoustic material over their rooftop bar and rooftop event space. That was in October 2017. They've been open since that time for over a year, and they have yet to install those canopies. Number 3, the neighborhood is already oversaturated. From 2010 to 2014, Driggs Avenue had 1 business selling liquor on the blocks between North 4th and Grand Street. 45 customers, 1 business. Between 2014 and 2018, there was a 20-fold increase in the number of seats selling liquor, bar stools, seats, whatever, along those 4 blocks. Currently, almost 900 patrons are permitted to drink during these 3 blocks. The Pod has the vast majority of these 503 seats where you can purchase alcohol. Finally, the Pod already has unenclosed drinking areas where they can serve 390 drinkers. They have a rooftop bar, they have an event space, they have an enclosed interior space. We believe that 390 open-air seats and bar stools are enough for any 1 licensee and more than enough for our neighborhood. Thank you very much for your time.
Hi, my name's Denny Tompkins. I live on Driggs Avenue in Metropolitan, across from the Pod Hotel. I've been there for close to 35 years. Tom covered a lot of ground there. I don't want to be redundant about the issues, but the main issue that we have is the oversaturation. We continue to get more and more liquor licenses, and it's creating a real problem in our neighborhood. And we would really like the community board to take it more seriously. In addition to the area around the this venue is, you know, it's surrounded by residential buildings. There's new construction, there's old-time residents that include those service housing, some of the little affordable housing that we have left in Williamsburg, and housing for the elderly that's 200 feet away from this site, Jarko Hall. Clinton, don't be confused by, they presented themselves as being a venue for sophisticated tourists, but Clinton Hall is a sports bar. Don't think it isn't, because, and it also has 48 feet of open doors that are adjacent to the bar and restaurant, which accommodates 100 people. It has an interior courtyard, which accommodates an additional 90 people. The noise from these two areas together spills out on the street nightly. We thank the SLA committee for you know, identifying the problem here based on their own experience. And when they have these doors open, this bar is definitely a problem. And we would just hope that they keep the doors closed. But, you know, the saturation is really the biggest issue. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public session. Can we have a moment of silence, please? Thank you. Can I have the roll call, please?
Gina Argento.
Here.
Bogdan Bakarowski. Lisa Bamonte. Louis Baraselli. Gina Barros. Eric Berzaitis. Tom Burrows. Phil Caponegro. Iris Cabrera. Frank Carbone. Stephen Chesler. Michael Chiricella. Teresa Cinciata. Joshua Cohn. Arthur Dibinowski. T. Willis Elkins. Julia Amanda Foster. Samuel Fransos. Chairperson Fuller. Emily Gallagher. Vincent Gangone. Solomon Green. Joel Gross. Sonia Iglesia. Moisha Indig. Bozina Kaminsky. Avram Katz. Ryan Coonan. Yoel Landau. Marie Lianza. Yoel Lowe. Trina McKeeva. Toby Moskowitz. Martin Needleman. Simon Newstein. Rabbi Niederman. Karen Nieves. Mario Domerick. Janice Peterson. Dana Racklin. Michael Gary Schlesinger. Isaac Sofer. Robert Solano. James Stewart. Del Teague. Tommy Torres. Maria Vieta. Stephen Weidberg. Tessa Wilson.
call you?
33 members present.
Thank you, Jerry. Can I have approval of the agenda, please? Phil, Trina, all in favor? Aye. Against? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Yes.
Can I have approval of the minutes, please? Iris? Indig, all in favor? Aye. Against? Abstentions? Motion carried. Committee reports, land use, Maria?
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. So this honor has been bestowed upon me because Dell is not here. Thank you, Dell. That stays on the record. Love you too, Tom, although we can agree to disagree. So on the matter regarding the application submitted by the Department of Sanitation and the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, the committee has recommended to deny the application to renew the license or the lease to Department of Sanitation to remain in CB1 when they can actually try to identify a site within CB3. Because they're, yes? Okay. Okay. So this is the recommendation of the committee, and before we, it is a unanimous recommendation. Thank you, Jerry. And can I hear, yes. Yes, I was gonna ask for a motion to approve or, but.
So I just wanna, I said that before, and I think, I feel compelled that we should hear, as before we spoke outside, we should hear the other side as well.
That was anonymous.
And I am, yeah, but I'm just saying to the other.
So,
give me a second. What?
There's a motion to deny.
But he,
Yes.
was anonymous?
I need a second. Marty second.
There's a motion on the floor. Seconded.
All in favor?
All in favor of the motion to deny the application of sanitation to remain in Community Board 1?
All in favor?
I'm talking about number, correct.
Do we need a roll call vote? Yes.
Roll call.
If you vote yes, you're in favor of the denial on both applications. Okay. Right? Madam Chair?
Yes, that is correct.
Gina?
That is correct.
So a yes is a no on the application. Gina Argento.
Yes.
Bagda Bakarowski. Lisa Babanti. Yes. Louis Baraselli. Gina Barros. Yes. Eric Berzaitis. Yes. Tom Burrows. Yes. Phil Caponegro. Yes. Iris Cabrera. Yes. Frank Carbone. Yes. Stephen Chesler. Yes. Michael Chirichella. Teresa Cinciata. Yes. Joshua Cohn. Yes. Arthur Dibinowski. T. Willis Elkins. Yes. Julia Manda Foster. Yes. Samuel Fransos. Emily Gallagher. Yes. Vincent Gangone. Solomon Green. No. Joel Gross. Sonia Iglesia. Yes. Moisha Indig. No. Bozina Kaminsky. Yes. Avram Katz. Ryan Coonan. Yes. Yoel Landau. No. Maria Lianza. Yes. Yoel Lowe. No. Trina McKeever. I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Yes. Toby Moskowitz. Martin Needleman. Yes. Simon Newstein. Rabbi Niederman.
No.
Karen Nieves.
No.
Mario Dahmer.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Karen, did you say something?
I said yes. Yes to the denial.
Oh, you said yes. Okay. Janice Peterson. Dana Racklin. Michael Gary Schlesinger.
No.
Isaac Sofer. Robert Solano.
Yes.
James Stewart.
Yes.
Del Teague. Tommy Torres.
Yes.
Maria Vieta.
Yes.
Stephen Weidberg.
Yes.
Simon Weiser.
Yeah.
Tessa Wilson. 30 yes, 6 no, 0 abstentions. The motion to oppose is carried.
That will be all for land use and ULURP issues.
Thank you, Maria. Trina, landmarks.
Okay,
there were, before we talk about St. Paul's, which was presented tonight, the first,
Rabbi Needham, excuse me, Freeman. Rabbi Needham, if somebody's giving a report that has to be voted on, please.
okay, the first landmark issue that was presented at the committee meeting in December was 175 Broadway, which is the former Williamsburg Savings Bank that's now the Wayland Event Space. And they brought a proposal for a marquee on the west. They've got two entrances in the front facing Broadway, and this is the westernmost entrance. And what they pointed out is that the entrance is a hazard when it's rainy or icy, and that people have slipped and fallen down the steps. The building, and so what they're proposing is a marquee made of structural steel that's painted black with a glass ceiling and a canopy. The marquee will be freestanding, it'll be anchored into the ground, and it'll be completely detached from the masonry of the building, and thereby it's reversible. There's no canopy that's contextual to a Beaux-Arts building like this, but the developer, the owner, pointed out that there are marquees on both the Sam Regis Hotel and on BAM that are similar to what they're proposing, and these have been approved by Landmarks. The committee, which met in a quorum, voted unanimously to approve the proposed marquee.
Iris? Rob, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Okay, and regarding St. Paul's Church, which we saw the presentation of earlier, there are 4 different issues that they need Landmarks approval for. The first is the rooftop terrace, which they showed, where the intention is to restore the gables and the turrets to the pre-1944 condition, both on the Rodney Street and South Fifth Street, and then also to install the roof trusses evocative of the original peaked roof. And they, in the presentation to the committee, they pointed out that the roof deck and the trusses, the roof deck will be supported by the trusses. It won't rely on the integrity of the church. It won't compromise the building itself. It'll be completely self-supporting, both the deck and the trusses. And then also they said that the trellises, or I guess that's it for the trellises. And then the next thing is the egress staircase, which is the staircase on the side. That there's now one that is, I guess it's a fire exit for the second floor of the church. And what the stair that they're proposing will also be an egress for the roof deck, but it'll then pick up the second floor, and so it'll serve the purposes of the store. And it'll have a canopy on the top, and it'll have the proper fire rating and it'll use the existing masonry opening I guess from the second floor. The third component is the sky bridge, which, as they pointed out tonight, will be structurally completely independent from the church. It'll be cantilevered out from the development, and it'll be made of cast concrete with glass railings, and they're intentionally making it contextual to the development and not at all to the church. And then the fourth is what they pointed out, the gate. They're replacing what's now a chain link fence with an iron gate that more resembles the original, but also will have the proper egress. Will be, I guess you can do whatever you need to do with a gate. So in talking about, at the committee meeting, we devoted a lot of time to really understanding all the various nuances of the proposal, both the roof deck itself, as well as understanding the completely dire condition of the church and the preservation work that's being proposed to the church itself, to the masonry and to the church windows. And then we also talked more generally about What was also alluded to by the people from the church that spoke is the role that that church plays, both to the parishioners and what we learned tonight to the second parish that exists inside the church, as well as to the community at large. One issue that the committee got hung up on was learning that the roof deck will be exclusively for the residents of the development, with the exception of 16 days. I guess it's 1 day per month, and then 4 additional days that are to be agreed upon between the church and the development. But the committee asked for and received assurance that the church governance was satisfied with this condition. Also, we were told that the roof terrace will close at 9, and parties and alcohol won't be permitted on the roof terrace. Gina Barros read a statement from James Walker, whose son read his statement tonight, and he had also come to our, James Walker had come to the November land use meeting and just really spoke so passionately in support of the proposal and talked about how much the church is really dependent on the proposal going through in order for the restoration work and the new roof and the guarantee of the new roof are just really vital to the church continuing to exist. And the proposed restoration work has been planned according to landmark standards, and much of the work is already in the permitting phase. And then, so where we ended up was agreeing that the roof trusses are really a radical design, that it's evocative of a ruin, and that the sight lines that were shown, you can really see it from all over the neighborhood. But balancing that, it was just how important it is for the restoration work to take place, for the church to continue to exist. And the committee ended up voting unanimously in a quorum to recommend approval for all aspects of the project. Yeah.
Get it clearly, I'm just gonna do it again. You refer to in your thing the adjacent 16-story building in return for air rights. So I never got how big the building is now and how much bigger it's gonna be when it gets the air rights. So do we know?
I think the developer said, I don't know, but it's the.
No, what was it before the air rights?
What, was it 16 now or is it going to
16
20?
with it will be 16 with
So it was
the
10
air
and it's
And they
going
got
to
6.
16.
Right.
Okay, that I never got clear in my head. And my understanding of zoning open space requirements is that you build a building with open space requirement, it's open space that's available for the public 24/7.
I think it's the building's own open space requirement. It's not public open space, it's, yeah, right.
Somebody else have a question?
I approve.
I'm wondering if I just want to have a clarification that the restoration work in perpetuity is written into the deed of the building.
I know that the roof, I don't think it's, I think they're given, as far as I understand, it's a set amount of money for the air rights, but there's a guarantee of the roof for perpetuity. Okay, you're not allowed to speak.
So it's like however much money the air rights buys in restoring the building, and then the roof will always be repaired. Is that just the roof under the roof deck, or is that the entire roof of the church?
I think it's under the roof deck. It's where the open space is.
So it's a one-shot upgrade of the building, and then it's just preserving the roof deck.
Well, it's maintaining the roof, and it's ample funds. 40%, as far as I understand, 40% of the money that's being sold for the air rights is going to the current restoration project. So there is extra money as well that the church will have to continue to maintain itself.
I'm just wondering if it's a possibility that in another 20 or 30 years, the church needs money again and ends up having to leave that space and it becomes like an event space or something.
That would be terrible. But I know that the church has been working out they've been working it out for 5 years. And I know just from the people that came and spoke at the meeting, the people that have spoken here tonight, that that they're completely, as far as what we've been told, they're completely satisfied with the deal as it is.
Well, you'll just have to forgive me for not trusting developers.
Well,
Okay.
but I trust the people in the church.
There's a motion. Phil, Iris, all in favor? Against? Abstentions? You abstaining? 2 abstentions. How many? 1 recusal, 1 abstention. Motion carried. SLA?
Oh, this is a fun microphone thing. All right, everybody. SLA and DCA committee. First of all, we have sidewalk cafes. There are 2 of them. One was for the pod, which wanted 20 tables and 40 chairs. And the committee voted to deny that request, recommend to the DCA to deny that request. And the other one was for Benelux, which is on Bogart Street. They needed to change their floor plan to reflect that they're using tables and chairs, not picnic tables, because when they use picnic tables, they can crush in lots of people. So they have provided a new schematic showing just tables and chairs. So we're recommending denial of the pod. We're recommending approval of Benelux. So
Committee recommendation, yes. Second by Karen, all in favor? Aye. Against? Abstentions? Motion carried.
okay, now new licenses, we have a couple changes in the report. The number 5, which is Tacombe Holding at 242 Metropolitan, the committee voted to recommend to the State Liquor Authority approval of a license. The vote on that was 6 for it and 1 abstained. That was reported incorrectly in the report. And then number 11, which is Grand Street Food and Wine, known as the Four Horsemen, we recommended denial on that one because they didn't show up. So otherwise, the rest of the report is as it's reported. No, it's an error. I'm correcting that. It's an error. I'm telling you that it's an error. Number 5 is an error, and number 11 is an error. We have cryptic note-taking because we don't have like a steno during the meeting, so I yell at people and write at the same time, so.
One question. Did we hear before, we'll talk about the one at Tacombe Holding?
Yes.
They asked us to deny, right?
The committee recommends approval.
What was how many votes there?
There was 7 of us there, 6 voted for it and 1 abstained. Yeah. I mean, we can pull it out and do all the rest of them if you want.
Okay.
Marty?
Pull it out.
Go ahead. You have a question for Tom, right?
Yeah, I requested we vote separately.
He wants to vote separate.
Okay, number 1, Green Point Beer and Ale. They just wanted to have their application removed, so we agreed they could remove their application. Okay. Number 2, which is the Rosemont, they asked to be postponed, so they're on another meeting. Number 3, which is Randolph Beer, didn't show up, so we're recommending denial. Okay, make a motion. You want to make a motion on the first 3 items? Right.
The ones for denial, I make a motion to deny.
I have a question about Tacombe.
We haven't gotten to that one yet. Marty's asked that we do them one by one, so.
Motion been made, Iris, Weiser, all
I
in
can do it
favor?
fast.
I guess I'm confused.
It's in favor of
Voting on the
denying.
first
So it's
three?
No, he says we don't have to vote on the first on the
One's
first
an
two. I
adjournment, one's a
suggest that we.
postponement, and one is nothing. There's
No,
no,
what I'm saying is, when I send it to the SLA, I have to have a vote next to each item.
but there's those two items, there's nothing, what was postponed?
No, on the first item, we recommended approval of the removal. On the second one, we agreed to postponement.
You mean removal from the agenda, or?
They had previously applied for a license and got approved for it and accidentally got on our calendar again, so we voted not to deny them or approve them, we voted to remove them. But we're just recommending to the full board what we should do with all the items.
We don't need to vote on the first one, because that's just not doing anything. The second one.
We have to vote on all the items because they go to the SLA. We just
Okay.
recommend to you how to vote on them. So we're recommending to number one that we recommending approving, removing the application, because they're gonna say, what happened to the application? We have to say the board agreed to their removal.
We do that.
Okay.
All four. Well, I wasn't one
The
of the.
first, I would recommend we vote on the first three to follow the recommendation of the committee.
Motion.
The first one is removing the application, the second one is a postponement, and the third one is a denial.
Motion to
Randolph
deny.
Beer on North 12th Street.
Oh my goodness. Come on, Marty.
Why are we doing this? I'm now going into my other job. Why?
Because the first two, anything else, the first two are nothing. The third one is.
But why don't we just vote on the whole thing? If you don't trust us, go on the committee and run it yourself. Because they're back there saying, we do not consider this seriously. We work our asses off on these reviews.
Don't know what that is.
And if you're gonna drag this out, you can come to one of our meetings and sit with Marie, who then has to take a 2-hour ride back to Rockaway, leaving the office like at 10 o'clock at night. I'm very happy to let you do that. I'm very happy to stay here till 2 o'clock in the morning if you want to, but we're gonna lose a quorum.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got 15 minutes. Let's do this vote. Let's do this vote.
Recommend, yeah, committee.
How do you want to do the vote, Tom?
Well, Marty can make a motion, that we're gonna separate them all one at a time, and then the rest of you can decide how you wanna do it.
I move that we approve the first two recommendations.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Marty, your motion.
And the third one is to deny the.
Why don't we just do this, do the motion on this, and then just vote it on?
We just did.
We didn't vote on it, we voted
Tom, go ahead,
to
Tom.
go with your recommendation.
I'll vote. The recommendation was,
The vote was for your recommendation, now we need a vote for the item. Okay.
Oh, so your first motion was we're gonna do it one by one, and they all voted to go one by one.
Yes,
go.
yes,
No.
yes. That's what you voted for, you voted for Marty's motion.
John, make a motion. John, make a motion.
Yeah, what you just voted on, what you just voted on was Marty's motion. What? But,
John, make a motion.
The motion I seconded was to vote on the first two items.
Right.
And then to have a separate vote on the third item.
Correct.
right,
And that is what we understood that we all voted on, yes?
Yes.
but that's the thing. You're voting on Marty, you voted on Marty's motion. Now we have to vote on the items. How much more clear can we get? We didn't vote on the item, you voted on Marty's motion. Right, but you have to vote for the items. Jesus Christ. Thank you.
John, make the motion.
Jesus Christ.
First two items.
First two items.
I'm doing the report.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the first two items.
Marty seconds, all in favor? Against? Abstentions? Motion carried.
All right, number 3 is for Randolph Beer. They didn't show up, so we recommend denying their application.
Weiser, Iris, all in favor? Against? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Okay. The Barley at 1025 Manhattan Avenue changed the members of their corporation So they're just had to do a corporation change. They're keeping the license, but it's just changing their corporation members. So we recommend approving their corporate change. That's number 4.
Karen, Trina, all in favor? Against? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Okay, number 5 is Tacombe Holding Company at 242 Metropolitan Avenue, which we had speakers on tonight. We had a number of speakers at the meeting of the committee. The issues that came up were exhaust and ventilation concerns, which are not a concern of the SLA committee. It is a 1-story commercial space, which is next to the old stone yard on Metropolitan and whatever that other street is, which is now not a stone yard anymore. There's a tower being built there. And then there's the Lusaurus on the other side. And this is a 3 cinder block wall building with a garage and 2 doors in the front. And everybody who's got a restaurant has this chimney issue, but that's the Department of Health and the Department of Buildings. So we said we can't deal with that. There's issues about sound. I know Tacombe that's in the village on Bleecker Street. This place, like I said, has 3 cinder block walls and a garage door in the front. We have stipulations on our licenses about when doors and windows have to be closed. Yes, there are lots of liquor licenses in the neighborhood, and there's lots of taco places in the neighborhood, but these guys want to rent this garage, which is empty right now, and put a taco place there. So the committee, considering all of that, considering the applicant, considering them signing our stipulations, agreeing to work on ventilation issues, the committee, unlike what the report says, recommended 6 in favor of recommending approval of the application and 1 abstention. So now you can discuss Tacombe. There was a question over there. Oh.
You got a question, Simon?
At the committee, what was that? I see there was some members speaking against it. Were those issues that you mentioned?
Yes, it was the people from the historical organization, the neighbors on either side. The people who spoke today spoke about the same issues at our committee meeting. And then we spoke to the applicant, and considering all that, considering that these Tacombe's got locations all over the place, and they can probably go to the SLA and get their application anyway, we have our stipulations that we add to their application about closing their doors, closing their windows. They promise to work on, these apartment buildings get built next to restaurants that have 1-story structures with a chimney on it, and then they get crazy because the ventilation is coming in their windows. So we got to make sure that buildings gets them to run their ventilation to the top of the building. I don't know how we do that, but it's not really our committee's thing to do it. And I used to live over a restaurant myself, and when the ventilator got squeaky, I'd call them up, and a guy would come with the oil can. And so we recommended that we approve it.
Marty, you have a question or motion?
To deny the application.
Second. All in favor?
I think you have to turn down the committee's recommendation first.
Yes, he has to put a motion and then we either say no or yes, that's it.
So our recommendation is that we approve it.
Is there a second? Lenza, all in favor? Against? No.
Okay, we'll do the roll call.
What do
you mean it's too late? The votes were not counted.
We'll redo the roll call.
So you have to handle both sides.
Yes is for our recommendation.
The motion is in favor of Tom's recommendation.
My committee's recommendation.
You giving the report, sir.
No, it's okay. It's just have to make sure.
Okay, roll call. Listen up for your name.
Roll call, can you clarify what
Yes.
roll call vote is?
Gina Argento, please.
Can you please clarify the roll call vote?
And, okay, let's clarify the vote. If you're voting yes, you're
Supporting our recommendation
You're supporting the
to
committee's
approve-
recommendation. If you vote no, you're against the committee's recommendation.
Right.
Okay, so? Gina Argento? Bogdan Bakarowski?
Not here.
Lisa Bamonte? Dr. Baraselli? Yes? Gina Barros? Eric Brusitis? Tom Burrows?
Yes.
Phil Caponegro? Iris?
No.
Sorry, I gotta keep my eyeballs. Frank Carbone? Stephen Chesler? Michael Chiricella? Teresa Cinciata? Joshua Cohen? Arthur Dibinowski? Mr. Elkins? Julia Foster? Samuel Fransos? Alice Fuller? I can't go with you. Emily Gallagher?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Vincent Gangone? Solomon Green? Joel Gross? Sonia Inglesia?
No.
Indig? Kaminsky?
Yes.
Avram Katz? Ryan? Yoel Landau? Maria Lienza? Yoel Lowe? Trina McKeever? Toby Moskowitz? Martin Needleman?
No.
Mr. Newstein? I couldn't tell if he was answering. Rabbi Needleman?
No.
Karen Nieves? Mary O'Domerick? Jan Peterson? Dana Rakeland? Mr. Schlesinger?
Yes.
Isaac Sofa? Rob Solano? James Stewart? Del Teague? Tommy Torres? Maria Vieira?
No.
Stephen Weidberg?
Yes.
Simon Weiser?
No.
Tessa Wilson?
Mm-hmm.
20 yes, 10 no, 0 abstentions. The motion passed.
Next item.
Okay, number 6, Brooklyn Lantern Box House. Didn't show up, so we voted to deny them.
Second. Wiser, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Okay, then there is a new place at 53 Broadway. We recommended approval of that one.
Mozina, Karen, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? 1 no. Abstentions? Motion carried.
Okay, and then there's Sal's Pizzeria at 544 Lorimer Street. That one's just a wine and beer, so there's really not much we can do about that.
Is there a motion? Second.
Okay?
Sonia,
Phil, all in favor? Aye. Against? Abstentions? Motion carried, yeah.
May I make a motion to approve the rest of the report?
All approval. All approval, yes, second. All approval.
Treatment is denied.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
To do it en masse, to accept.
okay, Eric's riser, all in favor of voting all the items?
Aye.
The new,
Against?
you mean the new licenses or the whole
Abstentions?
entire?
Abstentions? One abstention? Motion carried.
The whole board.
The whole report? Okay.
Approve all the recommendations.
All recommendations.
Okay. All right.
No, it doesn't want to. It's ahead.
They voted for the whole thing.
I make a motion to approve all the recommendations from the committee, the
Okay.
rest of the items.
You already voted on.
Okay. I vote for it.
We voted on, that was the motion.
Done. There's only one abstention.
To do it all together. Now we
Yes.
have vote on item.
Yes, that's right.
Now we gotta vote on item.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We're done. Thank you.
Parks a minute, do you have anything to say, Mary? Huh? You need, okay, as written? Okay, Chairperson, public session, can we call up the public speakers, please?
We have 3 speakers who signed up: Ed Maynor, John Jack Olipman, and Lacey Goodman.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to be brief. It looks like everybody wants to get out of here. Are there any more business owners left? They haven't all left. Who has a business? Business? Okay, we got a few. And okay, and any city workers, DC 37 members? No. Any? Oh, okay, good. So this is for you. All right, I'm with a company. My name is Ed Maynor, and I'm with a company called Colonial. I'm also affiliated with another company that works with the city workers, for what we do. And what we do is very simple. We show small and medium-sized businesses, and even large businesses, how they can offer their employees income protection benefits at no cost to the business at all. In fact, there's a tax benefit to doing this on Section 125 of your taxes, payroll taxes, so you can actually reduce that. And what these benefits are, they're everything from life insurance, disability, accident plans, critical assistance plans, dental plans, but these are plans that pay the policyholder. So if you became disabled on or off the job and you couldn't work, you get your sick pay, sure, but you would get this money on top of that, and it could be substantial. It could pay the rent, the mortgage. It could be the money that you use for your co-payments, your deductibles. You use the money any way you want. And so, because your medical insurance pays the hospital and the doctors, it's designed to pay for your medical costs, but it doesn't give you an income. So everything that we do provides an income to a person who can't work as the result of an accident or a sickness that occurred on or off the job. The plans they come with a wellness card, which means you have a card that you can get some additional discounts when you go and you need medications or you need prescriptions filled. The products, I went over that, they're portable. All of the products are portable. That means if you leave your job or you go somewhere else or whatever you do, you can keep the benefits just by plugging it into your checking account. And everything is done through a payroll deduction, and there are some individual purchases. With DC 37 members or city workers all over the city, is that time up?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got some brochures. If anybody wants one, I'll just hand you a brochure, and we'll hand. Yeah. Thank you. Very nice.
Hi, thanks everybody for sticking around. Yes. Oh, no, I'm the different sir. My name's Jack Oliphant. I've been around here since August 2017. This is my first time speaking at the community board meeting. I live at Grand and Bedford. I commute down Bedford Ave every day, and there's a crosswalk actually at North 4th and Bedford right in front of the Whole Foods. And I get run over almost every single day. In fact, I have an anecdote of me trying to flag down a police officer after somebody almost ran me over in the middle of the street, and he drove by me. So I would love it. My proposal is that we repaint the lines of the crosswalk. There's already actually a yellow sign with a pedestrian that points down. I say that we put another one on the other side, and we put flickers. There is no stop sign, which is why people blow through it all the time. You know, I'm just here to recommend flickers, repainting, and putting another pedestrian sign. I think a stop sign would be a great call. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
That guy over there. The guy that's standing up.
Hi, my name is Lael Goodman, and I work for North Brooklyn Neighbors. Most of you may know North Brooklyn Neighbors. We were formerly NAG. So I'm just here today to talk to you about an initiative we're working on. We're working to bring electric school buses to North Brooklyn. As you may remember in the news a few years ago, there was the VW settlement where they were lying on their emissions testing, and so a lot of money is coming through in the state from that settlement, and about $52.4 million of it is going to be going towards electric buses. So we at North Brooklyn Neighbors are writing and trying to raise awareness about having some of those buses be electric school buses in neighborhoods of high, pollution, one of which is North Brooklyn. Right now in New York City, there's more than 9,000 school buses providing transportation for school children. Children are breathing in the air on their long commutes to and from school every day. We think it's a really good use of the money to, directly impact children's lungs. So we have a petition. I have more information about it. But I'd love if you would sign it just to let Governor Cuomo and other decision makers know that we think it's important to put that money towards electric school buses in areas with high pollution. Thank you very much.
When you say school buses, do you mean private school buses, New York City school buses, any school bus? Because they're all contract bus companies, so.
I think that decision is yet to be made, but the money is already being allocated towards.
Buses, which, we can really tell
The money
them
is
what to do.
definitely being allocated towards electric buses and electric school buses, so it remains to be seen. Thanks.
Well, I don't know that we can buy electric buses for parochial schools. I don't know how that works, so.
Okay. The department is actually doing a test run of 4 right now, coming up.
Chairperson's report and non-district manager's report as written. Electeds.
No speakers.
All speakers are finished. Eugene Resnick from the Borough President's Office.
Hi, everybody. I'll be very quick. So one thing that wasn't mentioned today was the big news of the week, which is the L train shutdown, or not shutdown. So we gathered a group of electeds this past Sunday, federal, state, and local, to demand the governor provide us with, and the MTA to provide us with more detail, because to be honest, we all were taken aback by the announcement, as much as the MTA was. So we are writing a letter, the borough president of Brooklyn and Manhattan, in cooperation with other elected officials, to demand the MTA provide concrete steps as to what is happening in April. And if it's not going to be shutting down, and it's going to be only a partial shutdown on weekends and evenings and nights, that we should keep the reforms that we proposed, like the 14th Street bus lanes, the ferry service expansion, the G-train expansion, and improvement of service. These are all really good things that shouldn't be just canceled because the L train shutdown might not happen. So we're going to make sure that we push that to the governor. Also, our community board applications are due on February 15th. Anybody who needs to renew, come and see me. Also, one more thing that you might not have heard, but there have been some neo-Nazi symbols and posters that have been posted across Greenpoint in around McGinnis Boulevard, Eagle, Freeman, and DuPont Streets. And that has been flagged to us and to Lentil's office and to Stephen Levin's office. So we just want to make sure that everyone's aware of it, and we are looking into it. we are going to issue a joint statement, and if anybody else sees anything about this and knows any information, please let us know. So, thank you.
Thanks about that. Earlier tonight, Captain Glynn was here and he made an announcement that tomorrow is the community council meeting at the Polish Slavic Center. He will be addressing that and be able to update everybody about the investigation as far as the posters go. But if you do see one of these, right, because I'm following the Facebook post, do not rip them down and do not mess with how you see it, right? Like, so people were taking the swastikas and turning it into boxes, which is like a lovely idea, but then the police can't do the investigation that they need to do. So please stop ripping them down and removing them or defacing them, because the police need to see them as they are. But it will be addressed tomorrow night at the Polish Slavic Center at 7 o'clock.
And they left some information on their meetings when they take place, so if anybody want that information, it's right here. Thank you. Alexis from Councilman Reynoso's office.
So, thank you. Just wanted to echo about the L train shutdown, which I'm very disappointed after waiting. I'm not saying that I support the shutdown. Let me be clear, I don't support the shutdown or none of that, but I think that the community has worked really hard. The DOT, city DOT was, I will say, on top of many of the issues and complaints that we had, but the state, talking about Cuomo and MTA, left us hanging. So the community worked really hard. The L-Train Coalition worked really hard for years, having meetings and getting them to be transparent and pushing that agenda forward to be, at the end of the day, Cuomo with some Ivy League degree people say that the shutdown doesn't need to happen. So the only thing that
Didn't community board work hard too? Didn't community board one work
well,
hard too?
the community board is part of the community as well, and yes, it's true. I know that the community board also was on top of me when sending me all the updates. So yes, Ms. Fuller, Madam Chair, it's true. The community board also was on top of that. So the only thing I just wanted to say is that the council member supports the redesign of and all the effort from city DOT, New York City DOT. I mean the redesign, the extension of the services, the bike lanes, the extension of the city bikes, and also, let me see, and the upgrades. So that's, I think that's the only thing that I should add to my complaint. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexis. Edward Baker from Lenthar's office would like to be acknowledged. Joseph Yannis from Maritz's office would like to be acknowledged. Danielle Zuckerman from Brian Kavanaugh's office would like to speak.
I'll spare everyone my own musings on the L train, but I think you guys also got a document today that talks about the fact that the MTA is preserving some of the station improvements like accessibility and, you know, various station improvements. So if you want details about those, I can give them to you, but as of now, we don't know too much about what's going to be in place, but we're standing with the other electeds and trying to figure out what's going on here.
Okay. Thank you. Jonathan Bombozo would like to be acknowledged. Is there any old business? Yes, Evan.
In light of the L train shutdown, I think we should invite at least Andy Inglesby, but definitely Rob Marino and senior members of the mitigation team to the February meeting to explain what's going on, give us an update. I know they don't know it a lot now. I know that both MTA and DOT both got sideswiped by this, but by the February meeting, they should have a better understanding of what's really going to happen, and I think they should come and address the full board.
MTA said they won't have anything for community boards, any kind of answers for another two weeks or so.
Right.
Yeah, they won't have anything. They already had a conference call with community boards along the line.
So by then.
But they said they don't have anything. They don't have any answers. They said within 2 weeks they should have something for us. We will invite them out as soon as it's feasible.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is there any other old business?
I have new business.
And then the new business. Oh, okay, Karen? I'm sorry, Emily had her hand
Oh,
up
okay.
first.
Yeah, I don't mind if, okay, I was very inspired. Dana brought one of her students here today, and then I remembered that there was an initiative to have youth members of the community board, and I was wondering if there's a way that, we could have like, a high school member of the community board join us, and what I would need to do to advocate for that.
Start with the youth committee.
Great, I'm the borough president.
Oh, you talking about membership or just attend? You talking about for membership?
To be a speaker, like, to be a member of the board. I think
That's
that
up to the borough president and council.
16 to 17-year-olds. Cool, love it. See? You did it.
By the way, Eugene, we got a member that we've been calling for 2 months that sent out an email that she resigned from the board, and she has not been removed from our list yet. Can we get people removed promptly, and get people replaced promptly? So, Emily, talk to the,
Great, I'll get on it.
yeah. She's, I don't know, do we have? Pardon me?
All three of them are not VP appointed.
Good night.
They're council.
Well, somebody got to take initiative.
I have to correct you, they're all borough presidents. They're appointed at the recommendation of the council member, has to go to the council member, and they recommend them. Jerry, can you get a current list so we all know who?
All right, Karen, we'll do it.
That was in our last month, wasn't it? Yeah, we got a lot of people that missed a lot of meetings and they're not coming, and they're still on the list, nobody's removing anybody. And as far as youth being appointed, I don't know of any youth in any board in Brooklyn that has been appointed to community boards. I've only heard of Manhattan, I haven't heard of any in Brooklyn.
First.
Look, we don't need to be the first in everything. Karen, you want to have some? Hold on, folks, we got some more new business.
I just want to say that I'm actually happy to see that a board member was allowed to speak at public session today, because moving forward, I hope that actually is a precedent.
I'm sure it will be. I've never had the opportunity to entertain a board speaking on any subject.
I was told before in the past that it wasn't allowed.
I don't know. I have not had that experience since I've been chair. Nobody on the board came to me and told me they wanted to speak about an issue.
I thought it was.
I have in the past, and I was denied, and several other board members were denied in the past to speak during public.
Meeting's not adjourned. Hello, you're being
Meeting's not adjourned.
Yeah, Alice?
We're
I'm sorry, I agree. I thought it was policy, we couldn't speak to a public.
I don't know anything about that policy. I saw no reason why she shouldn't speak, because she was recusing. Let me just finish my statement. She talked to me about it. I saw no reason why she shouldn't speak, because she had to recuse herself. So like I said, she wasn't voting on the issue, so why shouldn't she be able to speak on the issue? So I saw nothing wrong with it. Like I said, I don't know what happened in the past. This is my first experience with this, and I didn't see anything wrong with her speaking, because she was going to recuse herself anyway.
I'm not saying that it's perfect, it's a good thing.
It's a
but,
good thing.
But in the policy, I thought that members of the board can't speak during public session.
Yes.
No?
That's what I was told.
They're not supposed to speak during public session.
Right.
But when Gina came forward and said she was going to recuse herself from the vote.
So does the only exception would be that you recuse yourself from the vote? Fine. So we can't speak during public. We
If
cannot.
somebody comes to me and they know, because we've had people that wouldn't recuse themselves, and they wanted to speak and they wanted to vote, either that or they didn't let us know that they had any interest in the item that was being presented.
Right, but at the same token, we were told that we were not, in general, allowed to speak during public session, even if it's on an item that's a non-voting item. There were several times when I requested to speak during public session about an item.
Did you come to me?
I went to Jerry and Marie. And I signed the paper, and they gave it back to me and said,
As a board member, you have the opportunity to speak anytime during the meeting.
I understand that, but.
Obviously, you don't.
No, Jerry.
See, that's the problem right there.
See,
Anytime.
that wasn't unfair.
I didn't mean it that way, but you can speak at any time during the meeting. You don't have to sign up to speak.
But at the same token, it was on behalf of my organization at the time, so.
Yeah, but then if it was coming up for a vote, you'd have to recuse yourself.
But it wasn't a vote, it was informational, and I was told I could not.
I don't remember.
Can we just have
So I would like to request a clarification on the bylaws, and if it isn't in the bylaws, that's all I'm asking for. And I am
haven't
actually,
seen it signed off.
and I
It's
am
not in the bylaws.
actually happy that you were able to speak. That was a good thing, not a bad thing.
Thank you, Sharon. I believe in being fair and looking at it from both sides. If I think it's fair, it's not gonna harm anybody, and nobody's getting in trouble over it, I don't have a problem with it, because I wanna do what's fair. Whatever information people have for the community, I would like them to get it out there by any means necessary. Steve?
Yeah, it's not related to this issue. I have another, just a request that the board members get an updated copy of the bylaws that include the revisions that were passed earlier.
Yeah.
It went out, but we'll send it out again.
He said the updated, the revisions went out before when Marty did them last year. The revisions were put in and they went out.
By the way, a lot of stuff was not adopted that we had discussed, so a lot of stuff was just left up in the air. So what we do is always try to revive the bylaws committee, set up a meeting date, and then try to finalize recommendations with specific bylaw changes.
Yeah, but there were certain things passed.
Yeah, that was included in, Jerry sent out the,
Is that the full revisions or the full?
the full bylaws with the revisions.
Whatever the revisions were, they were put in and they was updated and they were sent out, to my knowledge. Eric?
I was just gonna say, maybe it went out as part of the report, the revised, no, because I don't think I got it. Well, anyway, if you could resend it, that'd be great.
Part of the report, I think.
Bozina, you had something you wanted to say?
No, I just want to have one comment. She is the secretary of the parish, and in her capacity, it was very proper to address this body and recuse herself. So she did it the proper way, because that's the way to do it.
I don't think we're
No one's arguing.
I am not disputing that. I'm actually saying this was a good thing that it happened. But in the past, board members who wanted to speak during a public session was told that they could not. That is my.
Okay. If we need to look into this at the bylaws or the rules or the city rules, if we need to look into that, let's look into that. But this is 2019, we're going forward, we're not going backwards. You know, all the things that we've done in the past, we've come a long way. We're doing a lot of things we didn't do in the past, and we're trying to go forward. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank everybody for all their comments. Motion to adjourn?
No way.
Meeting adjourned. Good night, everybody. Happy
What do you need? I was really impressed. 10 minutes late.